Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Man Alone Solo Role Playing YouTube channel. I'm your host, Man Alone, and again, sorry. There's just so many sort of royalty-free commercial use clips, and so I did run out. I had to put something there. So a weird tone to set off on for this video, but I'm confident that I can turn it around because this video, I'm quite excited about it. It's been a long time coming. The game before you here is Coriolis the Great Dark. It is the, quote, standalone sequel to Coriolis the Third Horizon, a game that Free League once identified with so much that they derived their actual name from it. Did you know that? You know, if you go to the factions page here on 186, we can see that there is, I think, the Free League Traders, like TR. Yeah, there we go, the Free League. But it wasn't working for them anymore. Perhaps too convoluted, perhaps too much lore, too much to get their hands around, too much good story. So we have moved on from the Third Horizon, and we find ourselves now in the Lost Horizon. And so I'm going to do a little bit of a summary of the narrative from there to here to see the connective tissue between these two settings. As scant as it may be, there are connections historically, and I hope, at least in my campaigns, they will have implications. And then we're just going to do a little bit of a discussion on delving, which is the main gameplay loop of the Great Dark. I think, regardless of what your impressions are of the previous Coriolis, your experience with it, know this. Coriolis the Great Dark is a dungeon delve. And in fact, I think as I was going through it, the game that I kept thinking of was Shadow Dark. I think that there is some, I'm not going to go so far as to say shared DNA. I don't think they were, Shadow Dark is its own thing, but I think seeing the popularity of games like that, maybe they said, hey, we have this setting. It's been around for a while. Maybe they felt it lost some steam. What's hot right now? And they sent out market researchers, and they came back and they said, you got to do two things. You got to do a simplified, streamlined dungeon delve, and you got to have dark in your title, which is good. And I just want to emphasize, it is the Great Dark, and so you don't have to worry about it infringing on the title of your autobiography, The Great Dork. I'm kidding. Oh, come on. I'm kidding. Come back. This will be fun. So we're going to do a brief history lesson about the Third and then Lost Horizon. We'll talk about the basic play structure of the Great Dark. We'll talk about some modifications for solo play. I have a character made, and then we're going to delve, and I'm going to try to follow rules as written from the solo mode as much as possible, even though when I've been playing, I've been changing a couple of things just to suit my own preferences. I'll try to keep it as close to just the material in the core book, with the exception that, because I think it'll help to see and everything, the delve sheet, which is part of a really nice thing that they've done for solo players in the back of the book here, is that in addition to the sheets for your player character as well as your crew, they also made a solo delve sheet, and it's specifically a solo delve sheet. And so I just took that, and they recommend a more abstracted take on it. I just thought it would be fun to try to make some sort of diagram with the delve just so people could follow along, but we'll still follow everything on that sheet. So depth class, delve class. In fact, these are like little cutouts from that sheet to remind me how to do the checks. And And the bonuses, motivations, all of it is all ready to go. And just to kind of give a little bit of a disclaimer, the reason why I am coming armed with a character and a delve motivation and all that is because, as fun as that is, and as much as that is sort of movie magic fun of saying, wow, look at Man Alone can take these random inputs and create a story. I hope we're at the point now that uh, uh, there's no one that could possibly think that I am writing a script for my playthrough beforehand, because skipping over the quote unquote episode zero material definitely helps me to maintain motivation for play. I've just noticed, and I don't think I'm alone, a lot of solo players will put out a session zero video, maybe a session one, and then it fizzles. There are lots of reasons for that. I totally get it. But I think part of it sometimes is you build up a lot for this session zero video. You read the instructions, you create your diagrams, you print things out. And then when you do it, it evacuates all of that built up momentum. And so because of that, I did some of that beforehand so that I could charge right into the game. I'll still talk about character creation and talk about how my character turned out, etc., so that you understand some of the considerations there. But I think character creation in terms of following the rules of a game and figuring out how to play, that's usually an easier part simply because it usually walks you right through it. So we'll do the delve. I'll show you how this loop of play comes out. I think you'll like it. It's tight. It's a tight loop. At first, it feels a bit clunky. It's almost like pedaling on a bike where the chain is not quite on there yet. But after I did it about 4 or 5 times, it really started to click into gear, and I started to feel the mechanics move out of the way and make room for role playing. Okay, and so that's what my motivation is with this video. That's my hope, is not only to show you how to set up a game, but to show you how to start a game, as well as how to set foot into a delve, because that's repeatedly the hardest part that people talk about with solo play. I buy the book, I read it, I create a character, I look online, I buy accessories, and then I go, okay, we're ready to start. And it's like, wait, what do I do? So I'm going to show you. Couldn't be easier. We're going to do it, friends. You'll see. And I hope that if you're somebody who's interested in playing this, even if you don't have it, you can get the PDF online right now, pretty cheap, or the quick start guide is free. But I encourage you to play along. That's one of the best ways to learn a game. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and create a character and listen as I regale you with tales of millennia past. We're going to go back to the first book, and we're actually going to go before the events of the first book to the first horizon. Now, this is going to be extremely abridged. I just want you to see the relationship between these settings and to understand a little bit what we may have lost in terms of granularity and uniqueness in the first game, because I also encourage you, if you like The Great Dark, it's a good game. It's just, on its own merits, it's a good game, but there's the first setting is quite special. So if you like The Great Dark, maybe hearing about the connection between them will encourage you to check that out as well. All right, let's roll the clock back. Let's roll that beautiful Coriolis footage. Now, I do want to say this should be a pretty self-evident disclaimer at this point, but if you're not used to solo playing, just know that usually in many games, in order to successfully solo play, we need to dip into the GM section a little bit just to see what's under the hood. So some of this stuff is for GM's eyes only. I'm not going to do really big spoilers. Like, I'm not going to tell you what happened at the end of my campaign. There's 6 whole books of Coriolis Third Horizon. I'm just going to do broad strokes, but if you're going to join a campaign as a player soon, you may want to skip this part of the video. All right, so we start by going, let's put some music on. All right. So if we go back 1,000 years before the start of the events in the third horizon, we can't say for sure when that would be in our timeline, but given that the inciting incident includes a lot of the anxieties we have now, ecological collapse, conflict stuff, probably somewhere between 2000 and 2500. But whatever it was, the Earth is collapsing. And there are these twin generation ships, huge ships where the occupants mostly are in stasis, except for some crew who are alive running the ships for generations. They're born, live, and die, having never seen Earth and never seeing seeing the destination. And so these ships are the Zenith and the Nadir. So they depart from maybe Earth called Terra, also called Al Arda, and this is roughly a millennium before Coriolis, the Third Horizon. Basically, the rulers of Earth launched these two ships with hundreds of thousands of people out of desperation. The homeworld is collapsing, it says, out of ecological and social strain. And so each ship, hundreds of thousands of colonists in cryo sleep, and they're going towards what they think is their best bet, this red giant called Dabaron. And there is permanent crew that are these families that generationally, like I said, they take care of all the people in stasis. They're also the pilots of the ships. They mention the Quasars and the Irades, and these are names that are important in the Third Horizon game because they become family dynasties and stuff like that. So they maintain the vessels. Some of them sleep periodically, so that they can live longer to man the ships. And then at some point during the voyage, these twin ships are traveling through space, and the nadir, they lose contact. It leaves the route, and so only the Zenith reaches its destination, because prior to this great ship leaving Earth, there was some attempts to colonize the stars because Earth was dying, and there was, most people didn't come back. Like the ships that went out to find stuff didn't come back. The ones that did come back were like, there's nothing. There's just empty star systems. We go to planets. These planets are just hunks of rock. There's no Earth-like planets. There's nowhere to go. Okay. And that is when the Zenith and Nadir leave. Now, rewind shortly after they leave. There is one ship that comes back to Earth that says, hey, we didn't find a planet, but here's what we did find. We found this structure. And those structures turn out to be portals. And these portals, made by some pre-human ancient civilization that is referred to in the book alternatively as the portal builders or the predecessors. And nobody knows who they were. But they're very advanced because they built a lot of these superstructures, and they were not portals to anywhere. They linked systems. And people, once they figured out how to activate them and use them, everybody started going through them. And so the original group sets out the first horizon. They start spreading out, then they find a way to go. They find a route to another group of planets, the second horizon. And these two horizons start to be at war with one another, right? One of them is very rationalist. The other one's imperialist. There's the religion in these systems are oppressed. And so these systems are starting to collapse as well. And there is a group of refugees that are mostly like radical, spiritual, like people looking for religious freedom, but also people looking for fortune. And it's very much a Nina Pinta Santa Maria moment, if you will. And they are like, peace, we're going to go. And they leave and go to the third horizon. Okay. The first and second horizon, all intents and purposes, collapse. The third horizon, these people build civilizations, diverse, self-governing. There's 36 planets that are a part of this system they found. And they're settling them and they're setting up trade networks. Okay. And there's some other stuff in there, like 400 years before the game, the third horizon, the first horizon tries to like reclaim these colony systems, and it's like, hey, you got to get back here. But it led to these portal wars, which is it's only, the details of it are only significant because the third horizon was able to like thermopylae the invaders through the portals, but the victory came at a huge cost, which was that the portals back to the old horizons collapsed. And now that is cosmically intriguing because these portals instant zapped these people to somewhere in the universe. And so with these portals gone, they can never ever get back to those civilizations. I mean, unless they travel the whole universe. And so those cut those first and second horizons off forever, which is part of how the third horizon was able to grow into its own character. And its character was the best part of the first game. They had worship of the icons. They had the darkness between the stars, which was sort of Satan characterized by absence. And there's also a really interesting part where it says that in order to get a leg up in the war, at one point the first horizon starts to like harness the darkness between the stars. It's like evil magic energy. But essentially, great, we can now be our own thing. But of course, trade is severed. So it's okay for a while, but then they're like, we don't have any stuff. And so this initiates this long period of decay called the Long Night, famine, plague, regression. And some of these worlds regress into like feudal worlds. And then the Zenith shows up. Okay. So remember I said 1,000 years back, while the Zenith is going, beep, 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 it's heading towards them. They thought they were cut off from these horizons. I mean, I actually am not sure about this, but the Zenith could probably show its course and how it got there. The Zenith shows up and is like, WTF, what are you all doing here? And they're like, oh yeah, you guys left. That's right. Like, or maybe they didn't even know about it. I mean, it's 1,000 years prior. And they can't believe it. They're like, there's humans already here. What is going on? And they tell them, oh man, you took your boat. Like we just took like instant teleportation. It took like 1 second. How long did it take you? Oh, 1,000 years. That sucks. Now, there is a cultural conflict here because the crew found their destination. They found Dabaron, but it was already colonized. And they call themselves the Zenithians because they are on the Zenith ship, but they are called the latecomers by the people who are already there, who are referred to as the first come. All right. So there's this like Zenithian conflict, those families I mentioned before. So the Quasars want to colonize, and the Euretes want individual freedom. And it all comes back to something that's really not worth getting into, especially because I don't know it that well, where there was a big argument between the ruling families of the Zenith of whether or not they had to fulfill their contract or if it was voided, because they're like, it's been 1,000 years and the situation that we were told about doesn't exist, etc. And the only reason there was that argument was because they were trying to figure out whether to wake people up or not. And of course, you would only wake people up from cryosleep if you're a sociopath like Chris Pratt in that movie with Jennifer Lawrence. We're a thoroughly evil movie that's just sort of a rom-com. And then, so they're trying to figure out, do we wake these people up? What do we do? Draconites, and you know they're bad because they're called Draconites. They mutiny, they wake everybody up. All right. And that's when Abarin Quasar, who was the Abarin Quasar, who was the head of the Quasar family, was like, you know what? Everybody can go where they want. If you want to go to the ship, you want to stay on the zenith, you could stay here. You want to go to one of these planets and settle, you could stay there. And that family actually founded a colony on Kua, which is where the zenith eventually stopped. So in the first game, the Coriolis station is next to this planet Kua, and it is that big picture that is almost everywhere on the third horizon. Let me show it to you. So this picture right here, this is the Coriolis station, right, where the planet Kua is right here, and geez, this station orbits it. This is actually the zenith. The zenith became this centralized hub. And this is much needed because these planets had devolved and they weren't working with one another. So even though the Zenithians were driving for 1,000 years, even though these people had already been there, you have to consider this. If you come through a portal, if you come on the Zenith ship, this is probably like as big as the moon, you know? And so how much stuff is in here? Just how much is this made out of, you know? And to have 500,000 people on here, how much food, supplies, places where plants could be grown, maybe livestock, laboratories, all this stuff. Whereas if you come through a portal, you're bringing your tennis shoes and a whistle, right? And so even though they had been there for a while, the Zenithians were way more powerful than them, all right? And that's why there was this conflict and why it almost came to this terrible end. But finally, when it was sort of worked out, this becomes this hub of renewal where everything travels through this. The 36 planets start trading again. There's different factions that are set up. There's a council, I think it's called the Council of Factions, where you have mercantile stuff, political interchanges. There's the Consortium, Order of the Pariah, the Free League, the Council of the Icons, and that was a huge part of the first game. That is lost, was the praying to the icons was how you pushed your role. Mechanically, not a great system, but the lore behind it was awesome. And this is a new era on the horizon, speaking of tennis shoes. So there's prosperity, cultural exchange, goods and services. The mercantilism, I assume, would be specialization of exports and system of imports. Great. Now, at the beginning, and what sets off the core campaign is that there are these people that just sort of come out of this huge gas giant, and they're like, hey, we're the emissaries. We come from... You know, I never knew how to pronounce this gas giant. It was Xene. I think I used to say Zine when I GM'd, but maybe I was saying Zine. Yeah, it's a Zine fest. The gas giant, they are showing up as just these sort of distortions in scanners, and then finally they burst out of there. And some people think that they are the icons, and the religious influence in this world here was huge. Like they're the quote that shows up a bunch in a lot of the materials is one of the mothers of the church saying, if the icons weren't here, the suns would go out. Like there'd be nothing. They just didn't know about the great dark. And so nobody knew the motives of the emissaries, but they wanted to exert a lot of power. Again, some people thought they were icons. Some people thought they were frauds. Some people thought that they were like robots that were created by the builders or the predecessors, because there are these big structures everywhere in this system that nobody knows what to do with, that people think that the builders put there. And so this is the destabilized power vacuum flux that you walk into here. Plays out over 6 amazing campaign books, but as Free League said, we think we've finished that story and we're going to move on. You know how you do that with a setting like Ravnica or Strixhaven. You're like, we finished that story. It's over. Baldur's Gate, closed. I'm not going to go down the road. So now, again, let me just summarize here if it's not too tedious, but you basically have the first, you have the pre-horizon, I guess, which is right now. First horizon, humans, like first home systems, technocratic empire, order, rationalism. Then you have the second horizon, which is expansiveness, imperialist, highly bureaucratic. I think maybe, or at least I thought at the time, it was a commentary on like U.S. Soviet Union stuff. But then you have the third horizon, bunch of dissidents, refugees, rise of this powerful new faith. Um, and then you have the portal wars between the first and third horizons. Yep. And because I think the second horizon lost, not important. And then you have the long night, collapse of trade, isolation, feudalism. Then the Zenithians arrive. Coriolis station is founded. The emissaries show up. That's the first campaign. All right. So that is the third horizon. And I'll go no further than that because it's a wonderful series. And if what came next was important to the Great Dark, I'd tell you, but it's just not. It's kind of just gone, which is, check out my other videos on this. It's tough. It's tough. So suffice to say, emissaries appear, and are they aliens, robots, gods, whatever? The golden age that was burgeoning there collapses and gives way to fanaticism, entropy, and people start wanting to leave. And so this is the diaspora where people flee into the Great Dark. And the Great Dark is not necessarily a location, it's more or less just saying anywhere but here. These portals start to fall, worlds are burning. There's these last coalition of explorers and zealots and refugees. They flee the third horizon, and they're like, we're the diaspora, and that group, sorry, the diaspora is the group that this emerges from, because as they're going into the Great Dark, they see a signal, and they say, you know what? Even though it's 200 years later, they go, that's the nadir, that other twin ship. They're trying to contact us, and they're located in the Jumu'ah system. So they're following this beacon, and it's a long slog, right? But they're like, this is where this holds our salvation. We have to go there no matter how long it takes. And they take these, whatever's left of the great fleets, which were probably the best that the third horizon was able to produce, and they follow it all the way to Jumu'ah, totally out of any of the Horizons networks. They get there. This is the Lost Horizon. And what happens? They look around, they go, there's nothing here. Totally desolate system, empty. Asteroids floating around. And they go, damn, well, maybe there's something closer to the beacon. And then the beacon goes out. So they're just stuck in this Jumu'ah system, which is just nothing. It's just empty. And the name Jumu'ah comes from the word first and last star. So they're trapped. They have no portal. They have no path home. And they basically do what Coriolis Station was in a hand scrabble way, and they make Ship City. And by the way, I would love to have, like, in 10 years, a collection for Free League to release all of their maps. Another beautiful map. And this is Ship City. They basically pulled together some asteroids, put together parts of great ships, and it's divided into these 16 different districts. And they do it to survive because they're like, well, we got to figure out what to do here. So now they are just trying to survive. And they're like, well, if we're going to survive, we need resources. And we need to start going wherever we can get it. We just need stuff. And so what's around? They say, well, there's these asteroids. There's some what's a little tiny planet called? The dwarf planets, planetoids, right? And they're like, okay, we just got to go. And so they start exploring them and delving into them. It's sort of the main thing happening. And replacing the beautifully named factions from the first game are some very on the nose factions in this one. We have the Navigators Guild, the Machinist Guild, the Gardeners Guild, the Explorers Guild, and harkening back to the old days, the Coriolites, the wingnut zealots who still believe in those silly icons, but they are now insular. And basically, the way they talk about them, they're like people on the street corner yelling that the apocalypse is coming tomorrow. And so now faith, whatever was left of it, totally fractured. There's faint memories of stuff. There's this science that they're able to pursue that as much as possible. They just don't have a lot of resources. And then superstition. But they do discover something called the slipstream, or star river, and it allows limited interstellar travel. It's kind of like the thing the Necrons use, that the ghost wind, that it's maybe sublight travel, but this does give them new opportunities, and it allows these massive great ships that guilds or multiple guilds will collaborate on, and they map nearby systems. So that's kind of the work right now. Significant is that the diaspora, as they're looking in these asteroids and stuff, they find something that probably seemed like radiation at first, but it's more than that. It's blight. And blight is going to be one of the things, I suppose it replaces the darkness between the stars. And blight is something that's always going to be a danger. Enemies in this game inflict blight. There's blight in certain areas of delves. That's why you have to wear an exosuit. If your suit gets damaged, it can increase your blight, and that decreases your heart stat. And it's entropy given form. And there's an interesting essay to be never written by me on how it's the sort of materialist counterpart to the darkness between the stars. And despite this, as they're delving in these places where there's tons of blight, they find these flocks of birds, like real birds that were dormant. And then when the humans get there, they wake up. And these are the Garuda. And this is a big part of the Great Dark, is you have this bird. It's like sort of a familiar in solo play. It can act a little bit like a companion. It has an energy stat and another stat. I forgot what the other one is, but it's basically two simple stats. And there's, I think it's health. It has energy and health. So energy is used. It has some advanced skills that it can use, and it has health. And it has a list of basic powers that it can do. And there's different types of Garudas. They can fight in combat. They can do different attacks. Wow, that's awesome. And they're good friends. They're good buddies. But you can't control them per se, like directly. They're not drones. You have to work with them. You have to roll insight to see if they do what you ask, or else they lose energy or get discouraged or whatever it might be. They can be attacked. And so, anyways, they have some basic skills that they can use, and they can also learn advanced things. For instance, mine is named Tarek, like Eric, but with a both T and silent P. So Tarek has lavender feathers and antennae, and is caring but strong-willed. So Tarek is my Garuda, and I had in solo play the choice to add any advanced Garuda skill, and there are some really cool ones. There's like phase shifting ones and stuff like that, because these birds are really, really powerful. And I'll tell you what skill I use, but this is the most important story about the Garuda. There's like pockets of them all over Ship City because the asteroids that they pulled together, these birds were just like waiting in there. And it's weird because they look like Earth birds. It's like, what the hell are these doing out here? But they're more intuitive. They almost have like an emotionally resonant link, which by this time is not weird. I should say in the third horizon, there are people who are manifesting psychic powers. So that is something that's rare. Not everybody has these powers, but it's not something that people would be like, what in the hell? So these birds they're very quiet, but they have an emotional connection to who they bond with. And when they found these birds, they noticed that something was really weird about them because, namely, they can scan for blight. And also, if given the right amount of time and circumstance, they can like absorb it and get rid of it. And they can do that for you as well as you're delving. And so the humans were like, damn, what is going on with these birds? We got to see what happens. So they catch one and they're very trusting. And the bird it gets there as being pet, and they give it some anesthesia and they start to vivisect it, like cut it open. And the minute the scalpel goes through, the bird wakes up and lets out a shriek that is so psychically powerful, it just kills everyone in the room, kills like 12 people and flies away. And ever since then, they're like, okay, we're just going to let the birds be our buddies. We're not going to try to cut them open anymore. And so it is an interesting duality. There's an essay there I'll never write about the duality between the birds and the blight, and it's kind of the same as the icons in the dark, but lots of essays I'm never going to write. So Ship City is where we start. It's a dying bastion. Oh, by the way, out of all of the ones that I could pick, all these mythical powers, because Tarek is a spectral bird, and so has a ghostly power. I picked Fetch because solo playing, that's probably going to be the one that I need the most. Like, go get that key. Help me to, find the button that's hidden on this wall. Ship City is dying, and it is truly. I'm going to keep using the word bastion because it does look like the overland map in Bastion Land, but it's overcrowded. It's vibrant, although some people say that this map is a bit of an oversell. But there are those great ships going out, and so far they've charted 11 systems. And those are linked by these great ships and the slipstream. And so what is the thing that people are most interested in? Well, the thing that seems to have the most promise is that they have located in certain ruins on different planets and asteroids these mega structures that have a certain geometry to them. And once again, they're like, these look like the portals. We think that these were built by the builders, and that's why the beacon brought us here, is because there's something more that the builders are trying to say. And so they're trying to find technology, truths that might, reactivate civilization, reignite the stars. And so the third horizon falls from faith to ruin, and the lost horizon is the exile out of the Garden of Sorts, and civilizations surviving in the dark with Stanislaw Lem, a god who has gone silent. So yeah, we don't know where that beacon came from. We don't know where the nadir is, and it's different. It's definitely different from the first game, and there's lots I have to say on that, but I'm not gonna, because I'll carry on and on and we'll never get to actual play. So let's talk about the character. All right, so character creation will start here, and this is just in general. I'll talk about the changes for solo play, but you're gonna roll up an origin, and this gives a little bit of background, but it also gives us a starting talent. Now, I cannot do the entire instructions for this game. All right, because if I try to do that, I'm going to spin out here and this video will never end. But there are a couple things I'm going to talk about because I think they're integral to understanding how this goes. Number one, I'm going to talk about how talents and attributes and stuff like that works, dice rolling. We'll take a look at combat just briefly. We'll do the delve structure, but I'm also going to talk about health, hope, and heart, which are the derived condition stats. But the first thing is that in the first game, and if you played the Third Horizon, you are used to the old setup of things, which was what it is in a lot of free league games, which is you have your 4 main attributes, and then associated with each of those attributes is a skill, and those skills are more specific. And then certain games like Coriolis, the Third Horizon, had basic skills that everybody could use. Even if they had 0 in it, they could still use it. And then advanced skills that represented a sort of specialization. In this game, there's only attributes and talents. Whereas talents used to be special moves or whatever, they are now hyper-specific skills. 6 attributes: strength, agility, empathy, logic, insight, perception. And each of these has an associated thing of when it is interrupted, right? Strength, you could become exhausted. Agility, dazed. Logic, confused. Perception, distracted. Insight, shaken. Empathy, disheartened. All right. And when you want to do a dice roll, you still are going to use the year 0 engine, but you're going to do the attribute. So we'll say, trying to find one that will work here. Okay. So say that I'm looking for an old reference book for glyphs, and I'm in this huge library, and I go, what is this going to require of me? Might be logic if there's some sort of organizing system here. Could be perception to see if I notice the book or I'm able to pick it apart. And we'll just say, it feels equal, so we'll choose perception. Now, my perception is quite high. It's a 5, and so I will take 5 dice. And then I'll look through my talents to see, do I have anything here that will augment this? And I see that I have the librarian talent. And so I say, well, how many dice does that add? For that, you go to the level, and it is at level 1, and talents could be 1, 2, or 3, and that tells you how many dice to add. Now, most of them are like that. Some talents will say there's only 1 level, and then some talents will say at level 1 it's this, at level 2 it does this, and they'll be separate. It won't just be graduated. But for the most part, you have a talent that could apply to it. Add 1 for each level 1 through 3. Additionally, could add up to 3 gear dice if we had some sort of equipment that could help with that. For instance, my guy here has a climbing kit, pickaxe and shovel, deep scanner, book of glyphs, and star chart. And even though the book of glyphs, if this was the first game, we could maybe stretch it and say, oh yeah, this book of glyphs, it's a very special book that does XYZ. But one thing that this game actually does well that I'm kind of pleasantly surprised about is very often in a free league game, when you get sort of flavor objects, it's up to you to figure out, oh, well, I'm going to use my yo-yo for this or whatever. But in fact, in the Great Dark, almost all of these are listed as having a purpose. So the Book of Glyphs gives me a +1 when I'm trying to discern a glyph pattern on the wall. And then I also got bird candy in my loadout, and I thought that had to be a joke. And I said, no, it adds a +1 to 1 insight roll for when you're trying to communicate with your bird. Star chart will help me with navigation if I'm piloting, and I do have the shuttle pilot talent. I have a deck of cards, which allows me to regain, I think, 1 hope if I'm in downtime or something like that. And so suffice to say, nothing really here is going to help, but just say that I had, I don't know, a Dewey Decimal scanner, right? And it has a bonus. It will list a bonus of 1. This is my dice roll here. I have my attributes. All right. I have my librarian skills. So my attribute was 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for my perception. 1 for my librarian skill and 1 for my Dewey Decimal. And this is the best part of the year 0 system is you now get to play the slot machine because all we're doing is looking for 6s. In the first roll, we don't even care if 1s come up. We're looking for Garuda birds. And so we have 1, 2 successes. So we have even more than they need. And if we have extra successes, we can figure out what to do with those. Like in combat, we could do stunts or inflict extra damage, etc. But if it's just in a thing like this where we're trying to do something, usually you can bank that extra one as something we talk about later. All right, so that is essentially how those go. And again, if you're used to the skill thing, that will be a little bit confusing. There are no skills. At the same time, I wouldn't equate it with a game like Electric State that had a very pared down system because here there is quite a lot of usability for the talents, right? There are some that are quite specific, but there are a lot of them that have pretty broad reach. The ones that I have are shuttle pilot, actor, botanist, cultural savant, librarian, agitator, pugilist, pistolier, bird handler, and lone wolf. And I have a lot of talents because of the solo play starting loadout, which I am still undecided on, is a little bit of an editorial here. Part of me feels like it's a little too much, but again, it is rules as written here, and I'm not going to turn down extra attribute points and talents. So just so that we know, my character is Jorma Wayne Newton, and Jorma is an esoteric, which pretty much means that, specifically, I was a revolutionary prophet. But the reason that I am outcasted is because I was left for dead. We were on some sort of delve looking for something. I'm having trouble remembering it, but all I know is I need money. And even though people sort of look down on outcast explorers, you can get jobs as long as you're willing to take the jobs that nobody else wants. In group play, you have 24 points to spread around. In solo play, you have 28. And that means that I am able to do 5 for all of my attributes, except 1 is a 3. Now, that is huge in most free league games, right? That you would... Usually it would be 1 or 2 or maybe 3, but remember, there's no skills associated with it. So the attributes have to be a little bit higher or else the dice rolls would be dinky D. But it is overall easier because what you have when there's a attribute skill system is you have these rolls sometimes where you just have nothing. You know, you have a 1 in a category and no skill. Okay, I'll roll 1 die. Here I'm going to be rolling 5 dice most of the time, which is actually pretty good, right? I mean, especially solo playing, I want to do stuff. I want to be able to traverse here. All right. So we add together the starting attributes here. You could just do it in a line. So you have health, hope, and heart. And it goes in a line across like this. So strength plus agility, health. Empathy plus logic is hope. And then we have heart. So I'm going to talk about this for just 3 minutes. I'll even I won't time myself. It's going to be slightly more than 3. But I need to talk about heart because it is a snag point as you're learning this game. And I have thought a lot about this and realized the source of this snag. And so I'm just going to talk about how I understand heart and how you should think of heart. And I hope that this will help you to get through it a lot more quickly than I did, because it was one of those things that I was reading over and over going, wait a minute, what? Wait a minute, what? Okay, so let's talk health, hope, heart. Okay, so the first 2, pretty straightforward. Health represents your HP. It's your vitality, your stamina, and what degrades it? Damage. Health is strength plus agility. That makes sense. It's sort of your body's power. And if your health is brought down to 0, you are broken. And if you're attacked or hurt again while broken, you can get a crit injury. And if you have a crit injury, you can get seriously, permanently wounded or even killed. Okay. Now, hope is logic plus empathy. So mine would be 8. Now, this also kind of makes sense because hope is a thing of both logic and empathy. You need the logic part to figure out the most promising plan of action. You need it to be able to determine your odds. You need it to get yourself through situations that will keep you in the game. But of course, it's also has an emotional aspect to it where you just need to believe in yourself. You need to disallow negative, damaging thoughts from inside your head. Disallow negative thoughts and keep yourself positive and optimistic, right? And so then we get to heart, all right? And heart is insight and perception. So that is like a little bit strange to me. However, immediately when I saw that, I didn't judge it too harshly because sometimes I know from the game design experience that I do have that there are certain things that, unfortunately, based on a bunch of different moving parts you've already set up, you just have to make a certain stat or variable do something that you need it to do. And so there needs to be a little bit of dissonance, perhaps, between form and function, between the narrative and the mechanic. But nevertheless, it is a strange choice to call this heart. And it's misleading for a few reasons. Number one, because when I think of heart, that guy's got a lot of heart. I think of Rudy Rudiger from the movie Rudy, right? Somebody who is dedicated, who is has perseverance, who might not have the size or the speed, but dang it, they just never quit. And they're loyal not only to people, but to a cause, and they're disciplined and they have integrity. But in this game, heart sort of measures that, maybe, because again, it's like the parallelism breaks down. Damage reduces health, despair reduces hope, and blight reduces heart. And so you could say that heart is kind of like sanity, but not really, right? Because the blight is a thing that can erode you mentally, but also physically, also existentially. It could just blip you out of existence. It could give you some sort of mutation. And I think in my mind, heart is hope too. So as I was playing, I had this constant extra cognitive load to separate heart and hope. And what is sort of annoying is, for the life of me, I cannot figure out why they made that choice. There are two theories I have. The first is, and maybe if any of you have insight into this, you could tell me, there are certain times in Free League games that there's an unexpected usage of a word. For instance, in the original Coriolis, we have 4 attributes that the skills are divided into, and the top skill divided under empathy is manipulation. But it's used in a much broader way than what I would consider manipulation. I consider manipulation to be nefarious, deceitful, underhanded, devious. It's not good, right? But you would use manipulation to say you wanted a crowd of people to help you. You would use that to convince them. You wouldn't lie to them. It was just using it in a way that was to persuade. And I wonder, as I wondered then, I wonder now, is there something that's a translation issue there? Not that it's a bad translation, but that perhaps the language it's originally written in has a cognate that doesn't work when directly translated to English. And this does happen as you move words from one language to another. There's just something gets lost and the closest word has a different connotation. And so for this heart, I don't know what it could have been, but that's one theory. The other theory is, and I think this was true, I think they just wanted them all to start with H. And that's a bad choice because whatever we gain in alliterative elegance, we lose in these little extra cognitive tasks. On their own, stuff like this, who cares? But when this stuff builds up, especially in solo play where I'm always on, I'm always the one up, I need to reduce superfluous cognitive load whenever I can. Because one thing alone, no problem. But if there's a bunch of things like this, then it's death by 1,000 paper cuts. And this is the kind of small little nuggets that along the way, eventually I say, you know what, I'm just kind of exhausted. I don't feel like thinking about this anymore. I think if you wanted to keep everything at H and you wanted to express what this actually could be thought of, I would use humanity because this blight is a mutagen. It mutates your thoughts, it mutates your body, it dematerializes you, and heart is your ability to maintain your central coherency as a person in the face of this. It doesn't help. There's other things here that don't help either, such that, and again, Free League does this often, where they will speak about it from numerically from both directions. So you know how I said despair depletes hope? In one sentence, they'll say lose one hope for that, and then in the next sentence, they'll say add one despair. So I got in my head going, okay, so hope is here, is despair down here, and then I kind of move them toward the middle. It's the same thing. They mean the same thing, but again, when we're moving in both directions there, it's just hard to keep track of that. And then the cherry on top was they occasionally use the word stress in place of despair, which is the mechanic I think of a lot in this game, which is mothership, stress, and sanity. And Alien has stress, and Walking Dead has stress dice. And so that further confused me because then I was like, oh, stress is going to reduce heart. And hope, the highest like critical injury for hope is a heart attack. So it's like the highest bad thing for hope is a heart attack, not heart. The highest thing for heart is that you just sort of control alt delete, you never existed. Anyways, I say that because it just kind of caught me out, and it could have been an eats, shoots, and leaves problem. You know, when you just read a sentence a certain way and you get trapped in your head about it, you forget how to read, forget how to talk, and then somebody else reads it and they're like, yeah, what's the problem here? That could be the case, but just in case anybody else interpreted that way, I would rather that you watch this for 10 minutes than get stuck for 25. Look, I give you a 15-minute rebate. Plus, we got to spend some time together. We never get to talk anymore. All right, so we have that. We have 10, 8, and 10. My quirk is I'm always fidgeting. I have a shaved head. One of my blight quirks is that I'm slightly magnetized. I've decided that's around my hips. I don't know why. I was a revolutionary prophet. I was abandoned. I have all these great talents here. Actor, for instance, I don't think that means I was a Broadway show tunes. I think it means that I can become other people if I need to. All of them level 1. Told you my equipment. And then supply. I have a contact named Candor Zinn because when I was young, I grew up in an abandoned great ship and was around the Navigation Guild. That's what I was in before whatever happened. And now I'm doing these roles for the Explorers Guild. Supply is another thing that's a little bit tricky, and I think it'll make more sense when I read that in Flowers, not Flowers for Algernon. I know I want to say that everything. Flowers of Algarab, which is the mission coming that's going to have initiative cards and stuff like that. I'm using the Blade Runner ones for now. That's also going to have these tokens to track like blight and supply. Supply is abstracted, all right? And it's a little bit confusing. At one point, it says that each member of the party has to get D6 supply, whereas other places it says everyone gets 4. But I think that that's my confusion, because this is how this works. Supply is the etc. of delving. It's oxygen, it's food, it's hydration, it's lamps, it's all of these things so that you don't have to track that. It's abstracted into supply. And you get to choose a loadout, what you're going to take with you on this delve, because in group play, your encumbrance is strength plus 4. And so you get 9 items. Anything at hand or being worn doesn't count. And then any slots you have left over, each of those slots can hold 4 supply. Each time you travel a marker, which would be 1 square on this, you have to use 1 supply. Unless you do a failed roll, and we'll talk about that, then you have to use 2 supply. There's also some other circumstances you have to use supply for if you have a bigger party, if I think, stuff you could intuit if you run faster than normal, things that would make you use more supply. And in group play, everybody will bring around 4 or D6, I guess. And, or sorry, they'll decide how much they're going to bring. And you will go around to the different roles and decide who is going to give supply this time. They say that an average delve will use 15 to 30 markers, so 15 to 30-ish supply. And so if you have a group of 5, you probably want everyone to bring 5 supply. But again, the problem is that up to 4 supply fits in one area here of encumbrance. So you could use half encumbrance and say that you're going to take 2 supply, but 1 would still be half, I'm pretty sure. Anyways, you're going to have to balance that with the other stuff that you're taking. So if you take a bunch of equipment, you'll have no supply. You better have people in your group that are willing to overpack supply. If you're familiar with Forbidden Lands, travel is broken into these different roles. In solo play, we're not going to do that. We do everything. But that's how it goes for solo play. Group play. Solo play is going to make, in brief, here. Oh, sorry. The last thing is that your crew has these maneuvers. Okay, let me bring these up on the screen. It'll be easier. So this is where we get the band together, and you're going to have a delver, a scout, a burrower, a guard, an archaeologist. You assign those roles to everybody. You'll have to make decisions if you have less than 5. And essentially, on every turn of travel, everybody has something they're going to do. But the delver is the one who's actually going to roll like the travel roll, because they're going to be out ahead. And we'll talk about how to do that. Everybody is going to get this personal gear, and then there's also going to be these capabilities to change around the key attributes and starting maneuvers based on what role you have. And we get to name our crew, which mine was so stupid. It became my moniker. I'm the Scar Keeper, and I decided that people just call me Scarpy. Again, I have a Spectre, which means my guy, Tarek, has 3 health, 4 energy. And Spectres are the least common type, has a rapport with the minds of other creatures, its companions, and the explorers. So we had, we're going to have XP. We can improve our talents or add new ones. And then we have these crew points where we answer these questions after we finish a delve, in addition to getting our payment. The basic level up mechanics in tabletop, did you overcome something together? We will ask these questions as well. There's some different ways to ask these. These pictures are beautiful, but one of them I cannot stand. It's the guy, it's the last one, and it looks like, let me find this. It's a 12-year-old who is dressing up like an adult to try to buy booze. Look at this. That's a 12-year-old. That's 2 12-year-olds. One of them's on the other one's shoulders, and that mustache is they bought it at the dollar store. Give me a break. If somebody's like, "This is your pilot," I'd say, where's your parents? Let me talk to your parents, Dacos Les Modier. But anyways, just so that you know what the esoteric is, which I think is the coolest looking one. Yeah. So the esoteric here, um, I started with the Bird Candy Star Chart deck of cards, and my specialty was Revolutionary Prophet, and I didn't want to be that. Um, I wanted to be something else when I was younger. Um, but in fact, the talent that I would have gotten for what I wanted, which was Coriolis Seer, I think was a sucky talent for solo play. Intuition. Forgot what it was, but I think it was one of those talents that didn't work really well. The Odd Jobber. Okay. So, pushing the roll, we know about this. Difficulty will mostly be just base difficulty for most things. I'm going to look at these talents here. I want to see what Lone Wolf does. That's the only one of mine that I don't remember. Oh, yeah. Intuition is as written here. You can see it at the very bottom left. Like one of my least favorite types of talents in any game, period. They can give you vague but useful guidance. I hate that as a player, and I hate that as a GM. Vague but useful. There will be something that is a danger soon. Okay. It's like you can't, it's very hard to find something that exists in the cross section of that, the Venn diagram of something that is both vague and useful, right? You gotta be specific. So yeah, I'm glad that I didn't do that, and then instead I got Agitator, which I thought was gonna suck, but I think it actually turned out to be pretty good. See, there's tons of talents. Agitator, you get +1 base die talent level when rolling for empathy to speak to a group of NPCs or sway them or convince them of something. Great. Um, and there's all different ones here. I also have Shuttle Pilot, +1 base die to agility rolls for piloting a shuttle. And I just have to find, Ruin Delver would have been great. +1 base die for leading the way through a ruin or vault. I almost added that, but then I was like, well, I've gotten so much here that do I really also need Ruin Delver? But Lone Wolf. Okay. You can help yourself when broken by despair. Roll for insight. Okay. I'm going to actually remove that because it's worthless and it's taking up a talent slot. Because I can already do that in solo play. I can already do that for myself. So no need to fill up that slot. Because I had all my talent slots filled. Like, I didn't even want that. I want a little bit more ability to craft it to how I like. And then I do have both a Fusillade pistol and rifle. So even though I have the Pistolier talent, I have a rifle arm just because it's better. But when I use a pistol, it's a +1. So if I lose that rifle, it's still a pretty good shot. Okay, so in addition to these talents, your crew will have certain maneuvers. And these maneuvers, geez, look at all these talents. See, that's the thing. I didn't like this at first, the elimination of skills, but then I was like, you can really do a specific build with your character where you never have the same characters twice. So then it says, explorers in the employ of the Explorers Guild receive specialized group training before they're sent. This training is reflected by crew maneuvers that can be used in combat. Each maneuver can only be used by a specific crew role, not for us. Each explorer may only perform one maneuver once during the entire engagement. Often they provide a powerful bonus. So, obviously that doesn't make sense for solo play. And we still want those advantages because if we had a crew of 5, we get 5 maneuvers. So this, I think, is a really cool choice they made for solo play. And I'll start with this to talk about the differences here. So when I leave for my delve, I have these 3 slots for my maneuvers. And I can sort of load in whatever ones I think are going to be most useful. So I might roll up some different stuff or read descriptions to see what kind of delve this is going to be. If I see that it's one that might have a lot of blight, I might take a maneuver that helps with that. If it has something that is going to have enemies that are spectral, maybe I'll want something that helps me see them in combat. Whatever it is, I can load it in. And then you also use crew points to add new maneuvers and stuff like that. But for solo play, you can spend those to add slots so that you can go up, I think, to 5 slots to load these crew maneuvers into. So I think that's really cool. For example, let's see here. Flank, you get +3 base dice to 1 attack roll against an enemy. Perfect. Find weak spot, field recovery. Some of them don't really work because they're with crew. So I might actually, as I'm playing, be like, maybe I can shift that a little bit so that it works for one person. So we have the maneuver slots, and I'm going to choose 3 right now because just to have them for our delve. All right, so I took situational awareness, which gives me a free dodge. I took see pattern, which is really good. You recognize the current pattern a creature is using and get +2 base dice on any roll related to that creature this round, including attacks or defense. It can even be used as a reaction. And then I took that flank, which gives me a +3 base dice on attack rolls. Those are pretty broad, I think pretty useful. We'll use them for the first one. All right. So we have those maneuvers. Additionally, in group play, you get your starting equipment and your crew gets some equipment as well. I will get all of that just for myself. And I can always choose what I take with me and whatnot. But I'm going to take the climbing kit for sure, pickaxe and shovel, deep scanner for sure. We'll talk about why. Every time I see it, I second guess myself about this Fusillade rifle because I do have the pistol, which will take up a lot less space, but it does not have the distance that the rifle has, nor the power. And then the Book of Glyphs. So depending on what the delve mission will be, I'll come back to this and see if I want to leave anything behind. For instance, if the last mission I did while I was just playing on my own the other day was a thing where I had to find like half ruined glyphs and try to decipher them. So it was like, for sure, I'm taking the Book of Glyphs. Encumbrance wise, I'm going to get strength +6 instead of strength +4. And here is the big one. You remember how I said each character can put up to 4 supply in one equipment slot? I get to put up to 10. And so for that, last time I took 40 supply, which might have been too much, but I just had to use 4 of my equipment slots. And because I am able to have encumbrance +6, 5 + 6 is 11. So I still had 7 slots. Besides what I took with me, I had 2 open slots, which again makes me want to maybe leave one of them. Recovering, we can get ourselves out of the broken condition. So what I mean by that is when any of your health, hope, or heart, your conditions reach 0, you are in this state that, for example, for health, you're broken. And when you're broken in group play, think of it like if you've ever played Fortnite and they hit you and you're near death, you can just kind of crawl around a little bit. That's how it is if you get hit again. You have to take a crit injury. Each of these have something like that. And normally you'd have to wait for somebody else to help you, or you'd have to wait a whole shift to recover 1 HP. You can get yourself out of that with a roll, but after that, you cannot self-administer first aid to then bring, for example, your health back to full. You can only get out of broken with that, which is fine. That's all I want to do. Additionally, in solo play, you don't have to crawl. You can still do anything until you're killed or incapacitated because you can still do it with a -1 roll, which, again, it doesn't really make sense, but the alternative would just be as soon as you're broken, the enemies would just come around and just kind of blast you until you're evaporated. So there has to be some way to still do things for yourself. We also have Tarek, which can help us out, but Tarek is very strong-willed, but I don't know if he is going to be able to pick me up by my scruff. So we take on all the roles, and that means that normally when we encounter hazards, we'll figure out which role. See, this is a bit confusing. Which member would both suffer and roll to overcome the hazard, but for us, it's just going to be us each time. And difficulty, like I said, we'll set it at normal. NPCs will say simple, and we have Army of One. And if you've done Dragonbane or anything like that, it just means we get 2 initiatives, which is good. We can also flee. Wait a minute, did I just make this up? Combat is often best avoided for a fully equipped crew. I thought I got 2 initiative, but maybe I just made that up in my head because the thing is called Army of One. Oh no, top of next column. If forced into a fight, the outcast explorer battles with desperate ferocity. You draw 2 initiative cards and take 2 turns each round. But yeah, it really wants us to flee. That's pretty much the difference here. But I think it's good to go back to 212 to see the idealized delve setup here, because this looks so much fun. Unfortunately, we can't do all of it for solo play normally. We probably could, but I'll explain why. So anytime you're about to do a delve, the GM would go here and follow this list, and it's like a character creation. It's super fun. You're going to figure out what's up with this ruin. What does it look like? How big is it? What was the purpose? Does it how deep does it go? What's its defining features? All this stuff. And we can do some of that, but the problem is that in solo, it's procedurally generated. And so if we said, oh yeah, this ruin is filled with rivers of blood, and the first thing we roll on is like a frozen room that has no rivers nor blood, it's like, which we could work around that. But when I did try that, it just felt like I was constantly retconning stuff. And so I more or less use this for inspiration. At least to start, it'll work better to just read the 1 paragraph descriptions of the different districts that are available in solo play. But this is definitely cool, and it definitely can show you the different types of configurations of delves. Right here, gardens, shallows, deep vault, was it abandoned, destroyed, overrun, defining glyphs. Yeah, this could be actually interesting to do a defining glyph, because maybe that will give us just some thematic flavor. But actually, I'll do that now because I'm going to roll up our mission. Whoa, a 66. Shadow, obscurity, eclipse, the glyph of darkness. Okay, so we'll see what that means based on the mission that we have, all right? Which I will get to just in a second here. We are almost ready to go, but again, my goal is to get you push you off the shore here. And so there's just some stuff we need to know, and I'd rather it come from me. I'd rather you hear it from me. All right, so this solo delve log, it's a good tool, and it gives us pretty much everything we need to put together a solo delve. So we can name the delve, and there is, in fact, a good spark chart in the back that gives us some guiding principle words. And in fact, might as well do that to see what the inspiration is. But more important than that, there is a table where we can roll up like what the mission is. So this is something that I always find pretty useful. This is a tables only rule book. It's one of the nice things about having the PDF. I go through the whole book and I just cut out any pages. Obviously, I make a copy first. I don't want to delete the pages. Copy for personal use. And it's just this way, it's easier for me to go through and see all of the tables that are available to sort of summon things up in a scratch. Because otherwise, I do a lot of sifting. For instance, right now, I'm just looking for like a name. What can I name this person? Because in order to get this mission, we're going to go to the Explorers Guild representative. There's always an Explorers Guild representative, and I just want to know, what is dude's name? Because we want to figure out what our mission is. I already rolled up a description of him, and it is somebody who is eccentric, faithful, and bureaucrat were the three words. And I said, perfect. That sounds like a representative of a guild. All right, so this is where we're going to get our mission. If we see the top left table there. And because I figured out, this is one of the things that's kind of tough, is I have a schematic of the book in my head, because I've reviewed it, but it's mixed with the schematic of the Third Horizon Coriolis book. So there are times when I go, oh, I'm just going to look up that table. I know that table exists, but it doesn't exist in this one. Anyways, I kept looking for a name table, and the tables for the names are a bit limited, and they're diffused across all of the character archetypes. So what I did here is I just made like a 2d12 or 2d6 table, which I like this because I could just sort of pick and choose from these names after a while, and that way I know that everybody has like a separate name, and it's more easier for me to remember the different NPC names. But we might as well do a 2d6 dice roll to find out who this bureaucrat is, who is eccentric and faithful. And remember, faithful is quite rare now. So this is 7. This is Yara. All right. So we approach Yara, who is this representative who is probably not very happy to be here. I mean, Ship City is no Berlin, but it is probably a damn sight more culturally refined than this little sad outpost we find ourselves on. And it says here, if we're exploring outside the Red Garden, we can generate a delve using the process on 256, but we're just, again, kind of going to go with the formula as it's written right now. And so we'll figure out the assignment, but the first thing is which location. Again, this is just something I wrote on the bottom of this sheet here, the different locations. Since there are 6 of them, we'll know that it's Howling Mines. We're going to go to the Howling Mines. So before we go, we'll read like what those look like, what can we expect there, so we could start building that mental picture. But Yara is standing there, and this is Camp Alderon. Okay, so I approach this, and though I don't have any notable scars or anything like that, I remember I do have magnetism, and that's not like animal magnetism or charisma. Like occasionally screws come out of things and just sort of bolt to my hips. And I walk up to a table or whatever, and I try not to bring any attention to myself, because as I've been thinking about my character, I've been thinking this is a person who, regardless of what went down with my comrades who left me for dead, I'm guessing that people in charge of things are probably not going to look too favorably on somebody who is an agitator and a revolutionary. But I was a prophet, so I did have some religious side to me. And I can ask the solo divination table. I'll say, am I able to see any type of... is there any visible signs that this person is showing of their religious affiliation? A necklace, a tattoo, something like that. And of course, normally for this, I would use my Fate Mill, but just so that we could see the tools they have here. There we go. So this will be a D6, yes, no. Can we see any of that? 5, yes, we can. And so we notice some sort of symbol, maybe a ring, and I am about to say something out of recognition, but then I kind of bite the word back. And this person is eccentric, of course. So I walk up to them and what's an eccentric thing that they could be doing? I would say that if you, the best way to figure this out is to just use any facet here, not a character one though. Let's use a delve spark so that we could, because that's a, all right. So 4, 3, irradiated. Okay. All right. So turning over a vial in her hands, Yara, and it's kind of glowing a little bit and looks transfixed by it. And I approach the table and I say, I'm looking for work. And Yara says, work. Yes. It's good to work. Productive. Good for the mind. Good for the soul. And my curiosity overtakes me. I say, excuse me, what is that? He says, this right here. Oh, yes, sorry. My grandfather gave me this. Goes back to twirling it. I'm like, okay. Well, anyways, yes, work. He said, yes, well, it's no coincidence that I'm twirling this today because I definitely have some work for you. And what is notable about the work I have is also notable about this thing in my hand. So what I was just thinking right now is it's some sort of irradiated object, but I'll dump irradiated for a second and keep the spirit of it, because let's look up what the delve is, and then we'll try to figure out how this thing that he's twirling, or she, what is Yara? Yara to me sounds like a woman's name. There is a, whatever the twirling thing is going to have something in common with the delve mission, and that mission 35 is going to be to investigate the cure for a deadly malady. Yes. Yes, my grandfather told me that long ago, long ago, ancient history, they used to inoculate people by giving them, as it were, a sip of the venom that poisoned you. Okay. So don't you see? It's venom. And I've been thinking about whether or not I should have a sip of it. I don't know. That sounds a bit dangerous. Yeah, of course. That's why I can never decide. On one hand, I know that I have, rubs with her thumb, like this little religious symbol, protection from such horrors. But then again, I shouldn't want to so brazenly throw my life away. But what if it could make me stronger? What do you think? Sorry, what was your name? My name is Jorma. Jorma, yes! I have a file on you. You do? Yes. Right here, it says Jorma. That's all I have so far. I heard you talking to a vendor over there, and, well, I couldn't help myself. There's not much to do here. Camp Alderon. Quaint little place. Very good food, but otherwise pretty terrible. I said, it has good food. No, that's terrible too. Anyways, the work that I have for you involves an investigation. Jorma, are you good at investigating? I say, if you're looking for an answer, I can help you get an answer. Ah, I like it. Very good. I wish I had the determination that you had, the, well, conviction. That way I can decide whether or not to drink this poison. Okay. That sounds fine. Well, anyways, I've had this poison for about 30 years. Can never decide. Puts it back in her pocket. And I say, so where exactly is this? 4 Oh, I did roll this already, didn't I? But that's okay. We'll just roll it again. The sinking city. So we'll say it's in the sinking city, but do not be alarmed, my good sir. The city hasn't sunk so far, but it is sinking. I don't want to underplay that. And we need you to find out just a little something about it. Sparks are on 298. And this mission here is going to, wait, let me remind me of the exact words that it's used here. I need to investigate the cure for a deadly malady. Okay, yeesh. So we'll do a facet spark. 14, or wait a minute, is the gear, yeah, the gear is 114. Begin. 13. Begin habitat. Okay, so, yes, you see, Camp Alderon here, people had ideas for it. We're an entrepreneurial people, we are. I mean, we live on a floating rock scab. I'm sure we'll find someplace else to go, but, you know, we're always looking to seed life. That's what humans do. And here I am thinking about drinking venom. I should be thinking about breeding snakes. I'm always thinking of the opposite thing. But in this instant, Jorma, I'm telling you that this was an idea that people had to rapidly grow an entire ecosystem. And in case you're thinking of the same thing, I'm thinking of the black goo from Alien, which seeds life but also creates xenomorphs. No, I'm not going to face myself with xenomorphs. All of a sudden, Tarek crawls over my shoulder, and suddenly Yara's like, "Oh, are you just darling?" And Tarek kind of waves his antennae a little bit, kind of showing off, and I pulse just a thought to him, like, "You little flirt." So Tarek is perched there, and Tarek likes the idea of this. You know, this could be some important work, helping people who are sick. And I said, "So, what does this have to do with a deadly disease?" Well, it turns out that their desire to use, I don't really know what it was, some sort of rapidly dividing molecule. It's just, you know, one of those stories as old as time. They tried to seed this molecule and then it became a malignant growth. And, well, the story is it killed everyone there. Honestly, probably a bit boring for you at this point, but we need somebody to go in and look at it. And our normal delve teams are not available, Jorma. And I go, by not available, do you mean that nobody else is willing to go? Oh, of course not. That and starts kind of getting all in a what, not a kerfluffle, in a huffle. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? And I say, it's fine. I'll go. You said it's in the sinking city. Good. I need some supplies. Of course, of course. I just need a little bit of information. So give some information there. And while we're doing that, we would normally roll a delve class, which determines the difficulty of things because we add that as a modifier to rolls. We'll just do delve class 1 just so that we can get nice, easy. I recommend that you do the same. And in terms of a name for this delve, I try to come up with some kind of clever name or something like that. So there's this cure, and this molecule overseeded. How about we call it seed? By God, I've got it. We'll call it seedy parts of town. You've still got it, you old dog. So we'll give it a name. And the glyph, remember, is the glyph of darkness. I forgot what it was, like RAAB or M, doesn't matter. And our motivation is always money, but in addition to this, in this case, I use these facet sparks to construct some instructions, and that's great. We could use these sparks for whatever we want. Usually before a mission 2, I will take 2 of these facet sparks and just kind of keep them in a little slot right here to inform a kind of meta-narrative, leitmotif, see if we could fit it in just to inspire us. So 43, investigate. Okay. Oops. And 52, power. Okay, so maybe there is something more going on here. And power could be electricity. It could be realpolitik. It could be power structures. It could be some sort of power, like manifested zap from the fingers. We shall see, but Tarek thinks it's a good idea, and I can tell because his antennae are swinging a bit, which is what happens when he feels motivated. And give him like a little snack. I really like this little guy. He's very cute. I like and in case I need to represent him as a mini, I have the perfect thing right here. I think it's the same color. A nice Tyrannid. There we go. Of course, it'll never focus. You had to be there. Okay, so we have Delve Class 1, going to the sinking city for seedy parts of town. And one of the first things that we're going to do is do a deep scan, because a deep scan right off the bat is going to tell us whether we're delving blind or not. We need at least one success to not be delving blind. Otherwise, we're going to have a -2, I think, on our location checks. That's what we're going to do next. But the first thing I want to do really quick, and this will be, I think, the last separated teaching bit here, is just to take a quick pop over to combat and see what's going on with that. Do we need minis? Can we do it in Theater of the Mind? I'm sure we can. But most of this, if you're familiar with Free League Combat, should look pretty familiar. And we also have the GM screen has a combat flow chart that's actually nice as well. So let's take a look. All right, so you absolutely do not need to use miniatures. In fact, the instructions are way more abstract than this. I'm just using this to demonstrate the different pieces of this. Also, just to show you, if you followed my video a few weeks back to sort of shrink down skirmish, this is a tenfold dungeon from Gale Force 9, and it comes with 10 rooms like this, 2 rooms this big. All of them could be flipped over, so this is like a hallway. Staircases, everything is that sort of heavy stock paper, but man, $60 well spent. It's big. You have like 2 of these big ones, 3 of these hallways, 4 that are just sort of this size. Is great. And it also is filled with these 1x1 squares, which work for most things. So this is me. Okay, friends, I apologize for the little intrusion right here, but I kind of have to give you an update of something that happened while I was recording this to the sound quality. And because of that, I'm having to record a few voiceovers throughout this. The video you're watching right now is unfortunately the 3rd iteration of this video. And each time it's about 2 to 3 hours. So I say that only so you understand what the issue is. I'm very happy to film this video. I have a lot of fun, and I'm happy to share this with you. But by the 3rd time that I recorded this and this phenomenon still happened, I kind of had to give up and just do this patch. And what I'm talking about is that intermittently, and I don't know if it's my microphone, if it's my computer, if it's the combination, if it's some software issue, but whatever it is, there suddenly would appear in the recording, and I would only find this afterwards, after I would record the whole video. I would play it back and find out that at certain weird points, not too many, not too long, but like every 20 minutes or so, for about a minute and a half, this would happen to the sound. And here, take a listen. It's like 2 seconds. Otherwise, because they're such a small target to anything that tries to attack them, is a -2. And I also have to like, so if you can imagine listening to that for like a minute and a half is torture. And obviously I'm not going to put you through that. And so it happens often enough that I tried fixing it. There's like an AI beautification option that was terrible. I tried doing it through Audacity, and I would like fix little, like the individual peaks and troughs of the sound wave. And after about an hour and a half, I would be done with like 20 minutes of the 3-hour video. And so I re-recorded, and then it happened again, and then I re-recorded this time, and it unfortunately happened again a few times here. So rather than throwing in the towel, I just want to let you know that I am going to pop in when this happens and just sort of give a voiceover of the action. I'm not going to make a big deal of it. I'm going to try to make it as seamless as possible. But obviously, it's not going to be possible for me to exactly match the pitch and volume of the recording that was happening. And so you might just intermittently, hopefully it's not too many times. I think it's five times maybe, for about anywhere from 30 seconds to a minute and a half. You might just hear a switch over in my voice. Maybe I'll be like more or less tired. And I just want to apologize. I really didn't. I really tried, and I got a new microphone here, so I'm trying to figure out if this is maybe the cause of it. But I am sorry. But at the same time, I think I would be more sorry if I subjected you to the alternative. So this is what it's probably going to sound like. Here, the next minute or so is the first time where I'm doing this, and maybe you'll be able to note the difference. Maybe not. Maybe I'll be a sound engineering genius. But yeah, if anybody does know what this is, it only happens on OBS. I use a Mac. I have a pretty good microphone, so I'm not sure about that, but I'm trying a new one here. It could be that I just am sort of starting to fill up the hard drive of my computer, so maybe the encoding or whatever, who knows. But anyways, here goes, and sorry about that. Okay, back to the action. Okay, so a couple of considerations right off the bat. Despite the handiness of having this tyrannid creature here to represent Tarek, if you were to use miniatures, and if you wanted to represent the Garuda on the battlefield, you could. But truthfully, they're not a full-fledged member of the combat. Like, they wouldn't normally, maybe, how you want to play it out is different. But for instance, they wouldn't have initiative. They could be a target of an attack, but because they're so small, any attacks against them are at a -2. The book is also quite flippant about them dying. If they die, just get another one or whatever. But since this is going to be probably the only persistent relationship I have in the game, I'm not going to rule out the possibility of the Garuda being hit in combat or dying, but I think there would have to be a clear narrative or battlefield strategy reason to have an enemy direct their attack. I think perhaps it could be after maybe Tarek attacks, And that is something where 2 of the basic skills I know right off the bat can be used by the Garuda to attack and defend. But because they don't have initiative, the way you should think of it is like casting a spell or using a power. You have to roll, you have to do insight, and you have to use energy for a lot of these skills. There may be other advanced skills that are also relevant to combat. A lot of the skills are relevant to blight. Even Tarek's special power of Enshroud will make me invisible, but to blight. So it's not really relevant for combat. But it could be just thought of as a companion, yes, in a sense, but more that it's a strategy you can use to maybe hit enemies that are far away, or if you're going to take a fatal hit, maybe you can have the Garuda help you to evade that attack. That's some of the basic skills right there. And if that comes up, we'll look at how that goes. It's usually an insight roll, and if that's successful, many of them you subtract a point of energy. And then as far as the battlefield here, we have 2 baddies that are going to be up on the stairs and then on the top here. And there's also this turret over here, but I'm not going to put it in the initial initiative because this ruler here represents its line of sight. And so we'll say that that gets activated if I step in front of that line of sight. We can then add it to the initiative. Or maybe I can get behind it and use it for myself. The other thing that I'm thinking about here is that I'm going to be taking 2 initiative cards because that's what you do in solo play. And because these adversaries are NPCs, they're not monsters as it would be in some Free League games, or creatures or constructs in this. Those have a ferocity rating where that rating is how many attacks they get per round. NPCs like this are going to have a generalized stat loadout, and they are going to have 1 initiative, 1 turn of attack per round. All right, line of sight starts like right there. But otherwise, I'm trying to get to this. It actually looks like a hall open door. So just say that like in the storyline, we have to get over here to the control panel to open that up because I'm trying to get something to land here in this delve area. And so I probably would not actually be engaged in combat until I go through a door right here. There is a door. If you can kind of see right there. But because I just want there to be maximum visibility, I kept it pretty unpopulated here just so that you can see everything. Okay, so we will say that I have gone through the door, and we can also say that maybe my initiative will determine what kind of appearance I make here. So we'll say that if my initiative is better than both of theirs, I'm going to kick the door open and have the jump on them. If it's both of my initiatives are worse, then we'll just have me kind of having to suffer through. I guess I didn't know there was anyone on the other side of the door. And if it's sort of mixed up, we'll just do a normal beginning of combat. So we'll say that these are my initiative 1, then 1 for this guy, 1 for this guy, and we'll give me my second one here. All right, so this is 8. Is that 9 or? Yeah, okay. So I have a pretty good chance here, unless actually I have 7 and 1. All right, so I definitely have the jump, so I'm going to kick the door open, and we could give that a little cinematic oomph. I do a little kick. There we go. But actually the door is still there because I don't want to. Anyways, boom. All right, so usually if you do have the jump on somebody, the GM would have to determine that. In our case, we could figure it out however we want. And if you truly have surprise, you wouldn't even draw initiative. Although I kind of like the system that I did there, um, because if you had surprise, you just get to pick whatever initiative you want. Now, this is a free league game, and the system goes like this. We have initiative cards 1 through 10, and when you're playing alone, you draw 2. If you're fighting like a creature or an entity, they will have a ferocity rating. And when something has a ferocity rating, it say it has a ferocity of 2, that means it has 2 cards as well. It takes 2 turns. But anything that's not that kind of thing is going to be an NPC, and NPCs are just straight up and down combat. They'll have 1 initiative, and they'll have some varying stats that are available. Actually, there's a nice list on page. All right, so I'm going to keep it pretty simple. There's obviously like 90% of what you're going to do in combat we'll talk about right now. The other 10% can take like an hour. So we'll keep it pretty contained here just so that you have enough to get started, and then stuff beyond that that comes up, such as low capacity. What does that mean? What does changing the grip do? Those are things that are easily enough looked up when you have a weapon that does that. So in actuality, there is a mechanism for sneak attacks and ambush. So sneak attacks would be like if I was behind somebody and I was trying to do like a Metal Gear Solid without them noticing. And so try to think about, like, out of the skills that we have, this will prove to yourself you're learning. We're going to do an opposed roll. All right. And the attributes we have are strength, agility, logic, empathy, perception, and insight. Okay. So out of those, what are we measuring here? One person is sneaking, and the other person is or is not noticing that. So it would be agility versus perception. All right. And so there is actually, for any NPC, and I just decided that these guys are crewmen, they do have a simple stat line. So they're going to have a perception of 3 versus my agility of 5. And they have Fusillard crickets, which give them +2 bonus for an attack, a 2 for the damage, and a 4 for crit. And they are actually, what I said before, low capacity. And what that means is that in a normal combat, ammo, like a lot of other stuff in this game, is abstracted. And so you'll roll to see how much ammo you lost during the combat. But a low capacity firearm, if you roll 2 or more successes, it means you've exhausted and you have to reload in combat. So that usually doesn't happen. Ammo reloading usually doesn't happen unless that happens, or there's some semi-automatic guns that after you do like a full burst fire, you might have to reload. And the crit means how many successes do we need to have in order to trigger a critical injury. So what happens, like, for instance, the cricket here would need 4 successes. That's pretty tough. But suppose that they did get 4 6s, then if that person did a crit against me, I would roll on the critical injury table after, depending on what the weapon was or whatever, I would either try to dodge for a ranged weapon or block, etc. But if it got me, I would experience a crit injury. When you're fighting NPCs, they're just dead if you do a crit against them. I like to still roll on the crit table to see how they died, like, oh, I impaled their heart. Pretty cool. But they're not going to suffer like the effects of that. All right. And let's see here. So other than that, they have a stiletto, which I didn't. I was embarrassingly late in life where I realized the stiletto is also like a microfilament knife or a sneaky little thin dagger. I thought that stiletto was just that they're kicking you with shoes. But of course, we're not behind this guy, and we have our Fusillard rifle. And so, because I come into the room here, I'm able to take my first move. And for this round, I'll also take my second move. Next round, I'll redo the initiative just to keep it on our toes. But I'm going to move here. And for my first action, I'm going to take cover. And I'm actually going to, oh, sorry, Tarek. I'm actually going to consider that like not even a move. I'm going to consider that a quick action, because here we have the actions that we could take in combat. All right. And of course, most of the time, what are we going to be doing? We're going to be doing close or ranged combat, right? But there's other stuff. Reloading doesn't take an attribute because all it does is take up some time. Run means like travel twice the distance. So in terms of cover, oops, sorry, I don't know what happened there. So okay, anyways, I move here, and taking cover only requires that it is part of a move. I should be specific. So I can't just as like if it was the enemy's turn and I was standing here, I can't be like, oh, I'm gonna take cover before you shoot at me.
You have to already be in cover to get the benefits of the cover.
And we're just going to say that this has an armor rating of 3. Cover has an armor rating between 2 and 7, and I think the one that's 2 is a shrubbery. So I don't know what that is, but I know it's not an armored bulkhead and it's not a shrubbery, so we'll say it has an armor rating of 3. And armor rating just means that I will, if somebody shoots at me, I can use attempt to mitigate the damage of it. And if you have armor, you're just going to add whatever the armor rating is to the number of dice you have, and successes will reduce the damage by that amount, in addition to whatever armor I have. And I have that light exosuit, so that adds 1 naturally. And so I move behind cover, and I will obviously do a ranged shot, okay? Because I have the jump. Let's take advantage of that. If I truly wanted to use miniatures here, you would just have to come up with some sort of way to translate the 5 different distances. And I don't think it would be worth my time to prescribe exactly what that is, because it would probably be based on what size board that you're using. Like if you're using something like this, I would say that unless we're saying here to here, I wouldn't say that extreme range exists here. In fact, I think extreme range is really just used for like someone who's perched in a bell tower. Usually we're talking right next to each other is engaged, and it's like me and BB. We're engaged. So you're right next to each other. That would be engaged. That one is easy to extrapolate. And then short distance, there is actually some language around this, so we could probably deduce it from the language that's used in the book. So right, bottom right here, engaged right next to you. Short is in the same zone. Medium is in adjacent zone. Long is 4 zones away. Extreme's further away. So usually, if in terms of zone combat in a lot of games, I think the easiest thing to do would be like Brady Bunch the board here. So I could count out how many this is, but I think we can all sort of see the tic-tac-toe board here. So I'm not even going to count this over here. And so we're just saying like, line here, and we'll say that there are 9 zones. Okay. I think what I'm saying is fairly obvious, but I'm wondering how it looks to you right now. So I'll just be even more specific in a simple way. This is like all the clips they give you. I just put in one of the smaller rooms here, but I would say like this is a zone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I think that works pretty well. And right now, so we would say if this guy was here and this is here, I would say that I am in the adjacent zone. We're not, I wouldn't say we're in the same zone because I think the same zone would be like this, engaged, short, medium, and then it says long is up to 4 zones away, but a little bit unclear. I think anything beyond that, and then if you went another zone away, it would still be long, and then that's up to 4 away, and then it's extreme. So extreme really would be like if I was here and this person was here. So we don't have that, but my guy right here is in the adjacent zone, so it's medium. And luckily, I have the Fusillade rifle, which has a range from medium to long. Yes. So let's see. Grape rifle is on top there. So the first one is its grip. It's two-handed. I'll put the Fusillade rifle on the topmost part. So right there. So it's two-handed. It's a +2 bonus. It's 2 damage, and it takes 3 for crit. Yeah, so it goes from medium to long, and it takes up 1 equipment. All right, and so in order to do this, we just follow the flow chart, and we know that the bonus dice for the Fusillade rifle is +2. Okay, so then we're going to state our target, this jerk right here, state what weapon we're using. You know, I like imagining this as if it's, you know, Revolutionary War, like, down, aim, you sir there, you shall be my adversary. And he says, good shot, good luck, all the best. I don't know why they're both British, but the target decides whether to dodge or not. I shall not be dodging. And we can safely say that NPCs, we could come up with some sort of algorithmic system for this. I think that that's overkill a lot of times. They do what's in their best interest. Of course, this guy's going to dodge if he is able to. All right. And so, yes. And because of that, we need to make an oppose. Oh, sorry. That's close attack. So, target decides whether to dodge. Yes. So make an opposed roll for agility with a gear bonus for your weapon. Reduce the number of successes you rolled by the number rolled by your target. So the target has an agility of 4. They have a pretty good agility. And we, being the... Yeah, so we're going to use agility, but we get the gear bonus for the weapon. So that means that my agility being 5 +2 for my rifle versus this dude has an agility of 4. So it's 7 dice for me and 4 dice for these. So we will roll mine first. And mine is going to be 5 for the attribute of agility. And then I get +2 for my gear. And then we'll just look over my character sheet to make sure there's not anything else that might apply here. If it was the pistol I was using, I would add +1 for the pistolier thing. Let's check if there's anything else. I don't think there is. No, if I was using the pistol, I'd be able to do pistolier. If I was putting on my dukes, I'd be able to do pugilist. But this looks like just straight up and down here. So we'll roll this first here. And looks like we got 1 success. And so as long as this guy does not block me, he does. So means that he dodged. All right. And close combat is going to be the same thing, but it's going to be strength. All right. It's going to be strength. And then you're going to also use your armor. You're going to, we're not doing a special attack. Target decides whether to block. Yep. Make an opposed roll for strength with gear bonus for my weapon. And then the number rolled by the number of successes by the target. All right. And the question is, why wouldn't you block, right? Why wouldn't the target block? And that is exactly the sort of strategy of this system, is that when you have your initiative and say that I went first, right? This guy's going to go technically third because I go twice. If he uses a block, great. Maybe he blocks, maybe he doesn't. Dodge, same thing. But either way, he uses up one of his actions for his move. So he is going to have a more limited set of choices when it comes around to him. If not, might say, nah, I'll just absorb that damage and then I'll have like a full move when it comes around for my turn. But there's a lot of strategy that can go into it. Again, I can also wait, I can hold off, and if you have a higher initiative in group play than somebody else in your group, you can trade your initiative with them. So there's all kinds of stuff you can do if you're really in a tough fight.
To finish off that thought, I was saying that if you are in a more complicated combat, it's not worth it to delay the start of play so that you could be rest assured that you are going to understand every niche in combat encounter. Even if you're very experienced, even if you've been playing for 5 years in it, 5 years probably long, but let's say you've done 5 sessions, you're going to have something that comes up where you got one guy who's a minor NPC, a major NPC. This one's a creature. The minor NPC wants to run. You did a crit on this one. There's block. That's a situation where we say rulings, not rules, right? Do the best you can to figure out the calculus of that. But it's nothing that I would say, for me, that's one of the ways I inadvertently sabotage my start of play. I convince myself that if I don't know every single rule of combat especially, then I will have no chance to play. What I have explained so far, I think, is enough to get you started, except save 2 additional things. These are 2 things that I also want to install in your brain before you get started. The first one is just if you are using a ranged weapon that at a distance that is less than that weapon's minimum range. And I'll say for the most part, ranged weapons are not going to have close or engaged. Their minimum will usually be medium. Some of them might have close. I imagine whatever the equivalent of like a sawed-off shotgun, you could use that at close range. But you have extreme, long, medium, short. And I would say most weapons are going to be medium and long. And maybe some of them would be short to long, whatever. But if you're beneath that, for every band that you are beneath that, you're going to subtract 2 dice. So if you're using a pistol that has a minimum range of medium and you are in short range, you would subtract -2 from your dice pool. Unless they are specifically vulnerable. I think if they're prone, which is, I mean, you just have to imagine the scene picture there. If some guy's laying on his face, you could just be like, Anyways, the other thing, and I think this is one that does come up often, and I just want to make sure because I feel like I've been giving mixed signals. Suppose that we have an agility of 3, and we're going to use that for a ranged attack. And I have a ranged weapon, and I'm within the correct range, and it has a +2 bonus. It does 2 damage, and it has a crit of 4, okay? And I roll, and my roll is this right here. So I got 1 success. I do the 2 damage. That's the damage that the weapon causes. Now, of course, I'm just talking about the damage that I put out towards the enemy. They can then roll armor, dodge, whatever it is that they're going to try to do based on the attack. But I'm sending 2 damage their way. Now, if I had an additional success, I would add an additional damage, +1. You wouldn't add another set of base damage. You just add +1 for every additional success. So we have an additional success here. I add +1, and then we have yet another success. Wow, 3 successes. I add another one. Now my damage is up to 4. But what happens when I add the 4th success is I hit the crit threshold. Now it's a crit. And so for an NPC, a minor NPC, they're just gone. And for a major NPC or for a creature, that's when we're going to use either the injury table. For major NPCs, I'd use the injury table that you use. And for creatures, they have a separate crit table that I must say I'm not crazy about. It only has 6 options, and at least half of them are good. So if you roll a 1, they're frenzied. The creature is angered and immediately performs a bonus signature attack. Yeesh. If you roll a 2, heightened senses. The creature automatically gets initiative card number 1 in the next round. Number 3, retreat. And you're like, oh, that could be good. Nope, they go into a zone where no explorer is present. Now it starts at 4 that we see the flip side of this. And I think what they were trying to do is the highs are high and the lows are lows. I would rather see like a D66 here though, because this is again a feels bad man moment. I just rolled a crit. That's not easy. I rolled 4 successes and I have a 50% chance that that's going to cause this enemy to improve their position, including doing a signature attack on me. I don't like that. But yes, if you roll a 6, they're insta-killed. So that's an upside. Your mileage may vary. I'm going to feel my way through that, see how that feels. I haven't encountered a creature yet. Those are sort of elite enemies to bosses. I might as well say the last thing here is there is something in the book that says when you're in the engaged melee range, you could do these special attacks. Just make sure that you understand that those special attacks are not like corkscrew pile driver like Zangief in Street Fighter. There's 3 of them. I can't remember what the third one is, but it's like disarm the enemy, grapple, everyone's favorite move that nobody in the history of role-playing has ever done. I'm going to grapple the enemy so we can roll around on the ground. He can't move. The other one is aim, like to increase your chances of getting a successful shot. Are they in here? I think. Well, here are all the actions, yeah. So it would basically be anything but the attack. So you could throw your weapon if you're out of ammo. You can it says instead of using a ranged weapon at close range, you could use your weapon as a melee. I'm not sure what the stat would be for that. I'm guessing it would be similar to something like a club. First aid, decontaminate. Remember that block and dodge, again, if you use those before your initiative, you lose your action during your turn. And if it happens after, you can't do it. You've already used your action. Grapple, pick up equipment, use equipment, aim, and then, of course, command your birdie. So I would say that that's pretty good. And now, I don't know about you, but I say we got our mission from Yara. We're supplied up. Anybody here down for a delve? I am. All right, I'm super excited, everybody. We're finally here. We're ready to go. I hope that you feel confident to start maybe with me as well. That would be awesome. If you would like to do yourself a nice favor right now and allow me to do a favor, go ahead and pause and maybe take a screenshot of this. I wrote this up. This is my version of the solo delve procedure, and it's just here and here, and it is a hyper condensed version of it. This is basically, I've been trying to whittle it down to this the whole time, and I think that this could be a helpful list, because this, obviously there'll be changes, surprises, etc., but this is the recursive loop. And I just want to point out, go through these really, really quick so that we remember what we're doing, and that I'm just going to point out little tiny changes that I made for quality of life, but it's quality of Malone life, so it might not be yours. So at the start, we choose our parameters or roll for them. We already have that. We have the district. We're in the sunken city. And the sunken city, by the way, has a pretty cool description. I think it's worth our time to just check that out really quick to populate our mind with those ideas. Sinking city. A city deep underground. Its avenues, pillars, and statues are cloaked in darkness and dust. Here the builders erected a city dedicated to their god. Now its monuments and plazas are slowly sinking into cold, dark water that shouldn't be here. Portions of the lower levels are lost to the depths, hosting all manner of twisted aquatic life, and other chambers reek of mold and echo with the incessant drip of murky water. So it's like a flooded basement of a city. Couple of things. Floors and walls are slick with a strange, faintly glowing algae. There are warped statues, their features eroded by water and time, and whole parts of the city are submerged in dark water. All right, so we could go to the delve generator section for the GM, and maybe as you get a little bit more savvy with this stuff, that could be a good thing to do. I'm gonna pass over that. That's not part of the solo workflow, but it certainly could be helpful. I think right now we want to keep it simple, and adding other stuff like what era it's from, all that might put more constraints and make it a little bit heavier when we want to keep ourselves light and agile here in terms of the narrative. Okay. All right. So this is how it's going to go. We chose our district. Our delve class, we started at 1. And zoom in. We rolled our mission, and we have our delve sparks. Right. So our mission is we're going to find this. Our sparks were investigate power, and remember that our mission is to go and try to find what happened to these people who were working on this vaccine, maybe inoculation, and they just got wiped. My guess, vaccine didn't work, but who knows. And so now we'll start at step 0, which is the deep scan. We do have a deep scanner, and the deep scan is we're always going to start by doing a deep scan roll at the beginning, at the very least, the beginning of our delve, because I didn't erase it from last time. This is a pool that we can use to augment some tough rolls in terms of delving and exploration. And so it's going to be a logic roll. So we have 5 base dice, and then we get 2 for the deep scanner that we have. And our goal right here is to get at least 1. It would be great to get even more, because that will go into the pool here and we can use those, but at least 1, because if we don't get at least 1 success, that means we have to delve blind until we succeed at this. And if we don't succeed right now, we can't do it again right away. We have to at least move once. And delving blind will make our delving roll have a -2. So hopefully we get at least 1, maybe even a little bit more. Tarek, give it a kiss. Very good. Come on, Tarek needs a new pair of beaks. Great. So we did get 1. Wait a minute. No, that's just, I always get confused about that. So we at least have one. Fine, that's great. Would have been nice to have some more. We can get some more of that if we wanted to. We just have to take a stretch of time, which may or may not be worth it. All right, so we did that. We recorded the successes, and normally in group play, the scout would do this. It takes a stretch of time when you're doing it in the thing. I think you're supposed to do it a stretch of time here, but it doesn't matter. I don't need to do a stretch of time before I go into the delve. So we're going to set our trackers to 0, distance to exit, and foray distance. Distance to exit is the overall distance, whereas foray distance is the distance from our last key location. All right. And it really creates this elegant algorithm here where the further along you go, your distance to exit increases. Every 5, your depth class goes up. And then your foray distance goes up. And then when you hit a key location, it goes back down again. And so what happens is that these are used as modifiers in these different roles so that there's a nice rhythm. There's this wave pattern from the foray distance that as we get higher with foray, it's more likely that we're going to hit a key location because our location check is going to be 2d6 plus foray. And so the more time we go without getting a key location, that foray distance is going to get bigger. And once it's 15 plus, we hit a location, we can search it, that resets the foray. And the location is really where that's the spot of where the plot of this delve is going to unfurl a bit. So that we know, I did make a small change to the location check, so don't let me forget to tell you about that. And it's totally optional. It's just something that I want to do. So we set our trackers to 0. The other thing I wanted to say is I like to do a D66 to see where we enter at. Usually I do it somewhere around here. But I'll even actually do a gear die so we can get 2. All right, so 51 and 33. All right, so there's a 51 and 33, so that'd be right there. Or it could be 33 right here and 51 right there. And so I'm actually, just to keep it nice for you to be able to see things, we're going to say that the entrance point here to the delve is at 33. Maybe there was some sort of elevator that brought us down here, and so we will start right here at 33. Again, when you're solo playing, you could use the solo delve sheet. You can take notes about it. It might actually be easier, because what I was about to say is distance to exit only goes up. Right? Every time you pass a marker or go 1 square forward, your distance to exit grows. And I think because of the map, we have to remember that it doesn't really matter what the line of best fit is. For instance, if we went like this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, we'd be like, the distance from exit is 2 because that's the distance right there. But it's not. It's 15 because each one, you kind of have to fudge it in your head. Like, yes, I understand that the exit is now actually closer than it was, but this number is not just something about like imagining the setting. It's also a functional number, okay? All right, so then we do the delving roll, which is our agility plus any applicable talents. We don't have any right now. The biggest one would be Rune Delver. That can add to it, but that's okay. We have 5 agility, and if you have any applicable gear, you can use that as well. To note, if you do have any gear that helps you with the delve roll, you can only use 1 piece of gear. So if you have 5 things that can add to it, only one of them can apply its bonus. As far as what we have, I don't really think we have. I know we don't have any talents that'll help. It might just be a straight up agility roll, but let's just make sure we take a look here. And of course, that's the one sheet I don't have. Where did that go? Yeah, so right now, the actual scene picture is non-existent, and so none of the gear screams as being something that can help me. But suppose that using the sparks, I find out that, oh, there's a very steep incline, or maybe there's a rock wall. I can say, okay, on this delve roll, I could use my climbing kit, or it'll be easier for me because I have this pickaxe or shovel. But right now, we're just going to do a roll of 5. Okay. Might as well just get that going. So we will do 5 base. And all right, so we have 1 success, but let's see more what that means. So we did our agility. And we're going to move the amount of markers based on the successes. Okay, so just to illustrate this, I'm going to give myself an extra success here because I want to just show you how this works. So I start right here, and each of these 1 by 1 squares we're deciding is a mark, and so I'm going to go 1, and I'm going to go 2. All right, 2 successes, 2 markers, and since the foray distance is the distance since the last key location, we don't have one of those yet, so at the beginning it's the distance to the exit. And so, honestly, this would probably be great to use this for, but just because it's probably easier to see here, right now, both the distance to the exit and the foray distance are both 2. And we are, even though it's just 2 little squares here, this is 2 markers. And so that's pretty good distance here. I mean, depending on the size of the whole structure, but imagine it's a mile, maybe more. And we are going. The reason why I gave myself 2 there was to illustrate something about the blight check, which is when we get to the blight check, which is step 4, you'll look at the blight levels of the markers you passed, and you will use the highest blight level. Okay. Now, right now, does that mean anything as we pass through these? It's not like I assigned the blight level already, but I can get 5 successes. And in order to see what number I use for my blight check, I will go back and say which of these had the highest level of blight. But for now, we could have spent our deep scan roll to re-roll a die. And so I might have done that if I got no successes. Even though it's a bit early, I might have saved that. But getting no successes on a delving roll, you still go 1 space forward, but you use 2 supply. All right. Whereas normally it's 1 to 1. All right. And so this is going to be my first usage of supply. I move 2 markers and I lose 2 supply. Okay. And so I go from 40 to 38. And I think probably the way I'd like to do this is to just color in these boxes over here. I'm going to count some out so I know how many I have. All right, so these are 40 boxes right here. And so starting down here, I'm just going to fill in 2 of them. That's the way that works for me. You could certainly keep track of it on your sheet. And technically, that supply, we would settle that up at the end of number 5, but I just want to make sure I don't forget, and then I'm demonstrating everything for you right now. So we've moved to this place, and now we're going to do a location check. So this is where I made a small change. Basically, the location check is going to be 2d6 plus our foray distance. Our foray distance right now is 2. And when this roll is equal to 20 plus, we've reached our endpoint. Pretty cool, right? Like, I think that's essentially, it becomes more and more likely that something will happen as we go further and further. But not it's not always going to be the same because it's not the distance to exit. If that was the case, it would be very linear. So essentially, it's like as we get closer to another key location, we either are going to find something else or we're going to find the dead end. And 20 plus, that's basically means you've been traveling for a while and you haven't found any key locations. It would like stand to reason that maybe it's because you've exhausted this route right here. And so 20 plus is the end. 15 plus means we've hit a key location. And when that happens, we can generate that. Again, that's where some flavor is going to come in. But rules as written, anything that is 2 through 14 is a hazard. Now, I'm not against that, and it's dangerous. And it certainly isn't me saying, it's too hard. It has nothing to do with difficulty, because the things I've replaced 2 of these with could equally be difficult. I just wanted to slightly expand the possibility of what I can run into here. And so I just added 2 things. I added that instead of at 13, there's a site. And what that means is really it should be SITE. It just means there's something to see. Maybe it's a hazard, could be, but we'll use the spark tables, and it could be something that the builders potentially made. It could be some bodies strung up in some sort of ritual sacrifice. It could be an overlook of like a canyon burrowed into this ruin, and it's just breathtaking or horrifying or whatever it is, stalactites. I want to have that opportunity to just color in the picture a little bit more in my mind. And then at 14, both of these would have been hazards. At 14, I just made a simple NPC interaction thing because I thought it'd be good to occasionally run into some people. And so if we hit a 14, we roll a 1d6, and I just use this separation of NPC types from some other table in here. 1 is a specialist from a faction. 2 is a member of the Black Toad, which that could be a conflict because they're sort of like the mob. 3 would be a guild expert. 4 would be a miner, like MINER, or somebody that is working in mine shafts or something like that. Number 5 would be wreckers. I'm not quite sure what that is. I think I read at one point what that is. Just people who burrow into it, or it could be that they're squatters. We'll find out. And then 6 is cultists or other. And at first I had it just as cultists, but then I was thinking to myself, some of these, religion is not what it was here. And also some of these ruins seem to be more likely than others to have cultists, whereas other ones I would think might have a different type of person hanging around. So those were the changes. 2 through 12 hazard. 13, 14 is a site or an NPC. 15 plus is a key location. 20 plus is the end. And so if we do get a hazard, which we'll get most of the time, we'll go to the hazard table on 212. We could use some delve sparks to fill in details of that on 300. And we resolve it. If we fail, on page 301 is I think it's called costly outcomes, and we'll just roll. It could be damage, supply loss, condition. And to be honest, I would prefer to resolve those with quick loss rather than having constant combat. Sometimes combat will seem like the right thing to do, but sometimes I just want it to be the equivalent of a trap. A bear trap I got my foot stuck in, but instead of a bear trap, I'm being shaken down by members of the Black Toad. Then, once we've moved, at the end of that stretch of movement, we do 2 base dice plus our delve class, plus our depth class here, and and we can reduce it with using the oh man, I definitely did the thing where I was thinking of something else, because instead of deep scan bonus, I wrote blight scan boss. Must have been thinking of Springsteen. And you can reduce it 1-to-1, so you could spend 1 deep scan bonus to reduce it down to a minimum of 2. And it's a 1-to-1. So every success that we get for this blight check would add potentially 1 blight. However, our delve suit is going to be armor against that, so we would roll, I think I have 3 blight defense, and so we'd roll that. And the Garuda will also could with an expenditure of energy block some blight, and we want to be careful about that, because yes, we have 10 heart, so we lose 1 of those, we gain a blight, not a big deal, but the outcomes for that, the equivalent of critical injuries for blight, are serious, including instant mission ending kind of stuff. So we just want to keep track of that. And that's on number 5. We're going to increase the distance to the exit, increase the foray distance unless we're back at a key location, and we're going to check our blight. So once again, I'm just going to hold this up to the camera. If you want to use it, please do. And go ahead and take a screenshot. The little bird here is my attempt to draw the bird from the book cover. There we go. And then a little waffle on the bottom right there. Okay. So where were we here? So we have to do a location check. So our foray distance is 2, and we do +2 base dice. 2d6 plus foray. So 4. Wait a minute. It's 2d6 plus foray. It's not foray d6. I almost took 2d6, and then I was thinking, wait a minute. So if our foray goes up to 10, we're gonna do 2 plus 10 d6. So we'll just roll 2d6 and add the foray number. So 7 plus 2 is going to be 9. And that's going to be a hazard. All right, so with a hazard, we'll go to the basic hazard table on page 212. So right now, again, very technical right now, very procedural, but keep doing this, and suddenly you don't even have to refer back to it, because you're like this guy. You got to wear that hat because that's how big your brain is. So 212. Oh, yeah. So again, the way that this table works is it's divided by like the member of your group. It's not going to matter for us, but it's still kind of relevant to say, oh, the hazard we have is the hazard that affects the burrower team member. Well, that's us, but we have an idea of what that hazard is going to be, because it should be relevant to that. And then the hazard roll modifier goes by, it looks like it's going to go by the depth class, because 1 to 5 is no modifier, 6 to 10 is +1, 11 to 15 is +2, and then 16 plus is +3. So that's kind of interesting, though. I just can't help but notice that this should be, it would seem to be that 1 to 5 would be +1. So is that different for solo? Let's see. Hazard down here. Oh, and the camp check, by the way, is 2d6 plus delve plus depth. And 2 to 14, we get a nice rest without interruption. 15 plus is an interruption. There's some other stuff with camp, but I'm not going to get into that this time. So it says that once the hazard has been determined, so this is the delve procedure. I'm just going to do a little bit research. Okay, interesting. I'll try it like here. So what it says is that delve hazards. There are always surprises in a delve, even for the most experienced explorer. After the delve movement is completed, unless a key location is reached, a hazard occurs. Not for us. We have 2 little extras. First, the GM rolls a d6 to determine which crew roll is affected by the hazard. Reroll any 5s if no archaeologist is present. Then another d6 on the Delve Hazards table to determine the hazard incurred. So for us, we could just do that as a d6. The second d6 is modified by the current distance to the nearest known exit from the Delve. That's interesting. And that makes sense because in group play, they have a pre-made map that the GM has, so they'd be able to look at that. And that's probably why it's more vague for solo, and that's probably why we just use this depth class. So, it then says, once the hazard is determined, the GM sets the scene, the player reacts and makes an attribute roll as indicated. So, right now, I think we just make a straight up 2d6 roll to see what we got. Okay, I see. So the reason why we'd want to modify it 1, 2, or 3 is because even though it's a d6, while the top number only goes to 6 in terms of the role that is affected, the role as in responsibility affected, the second one is a d6 roll, but if you have these additional modifiers, that's how you can go up to 7, 8, or 9 plus, which are harsher. And that would happen if you are further from the exit, which makes sense. You're more immersed. You're in it now. So we will do top roll is a 1. So that the Delver, that's me. And then the bottom here, a 1. Okay. Unstable surface, we're going to roll agility, and if we fail, we lose 1 supply. So agility is going to be 5, and an unstable surface. There's nothing that immediately comes to mind, but let me just take a look here. Shuttle pilot, actor, botanist, cultural savant, librarian. Yeah, librarian, I'll go, I read a book once on keeping my balance. Pugilist, pistolier, bird handler, climbing kit. Nah, that wouldn't be for just like a sudden slip. Pickaxe. Pickaxe is not at hand. I don't think I could use it. Bird candy, star chart, deck of cards. Nope. I think we just roll a straight up agility, which is going to be 5. Great. We have a success, so we do not fail. So we overcome that hazard. And it's like we were walking along a ledge, and suddenly I'm walking along, I'm talking to Tarek, and maybe it's really embarrassing. Maybe I'm saying, Tarek, you get to fly around, but I think I'm a little more like not vulnerable, but I think I present as quite stoic to others or guarded. But when it's just me and the chubbo Tarek, I'm a little more of like I'm a version of myself I wouldn't show to others. But I'm saying, you're so lucky. You don't even use those scrawny little legs. I got to walk around. And when you walk around, though, you might think it's a disadvantage, Tarek, but you learn things. You learn balance. You have no concept of balance. You'll just fly away. But me, I'm basically a ninja when it comes to and I don't even finish the word balance. And the ledge just and I go, and I almost slip. And I grab on. It's not like I'm hanging over the ledge. It's more of a curved slide, but I almost tumbled down, and I'm grab onto something, and I'm sort of pulling myself back up, and right over the ledge, I just see Tarek walking, going, like, oh, I could walk. What's wrong with you? Okay, so luckily we don't lose an additional supply, but we do lose 2 supply just from traveling that much. I've incurred no serious damage or anything like that. However, we will have to do our blight check. That's one thing we did not do. And so the blight is going to be 2 base dice plus the delve class, which I put PG. The hell did that mean? Was I trying to say page something? Maybe I was saying DC, delve class. Oh, it's delve class D6. So I'm saying if your delve class is 2, then you roll 2d6, rather than saying it's 2 base dice plus 2, like just the number. It's delve class D6. So our delve class is 1. I'm not losing it, am I? Yes. No, that's depth. Yeah, delve class is 1, so that's a 1d6 for that. And the depth class, we're still at 1 here as well. And we can reduce... Oh, that's right. We can reduce it with the Blight Scan boss, which is actually the Deep Scan bonus. So we'll roll 4. And we have a 1. All right, so this would inflict 1 Blight. However, I do have the light armor, and that has Blight protection of 3. So I do get a chance here to protect myself. I have the right. Hopefully we can get at least 1 success to knock that out. We get 2. Wonderful. What happens when I get more than 1 success on a roll like this? Well, I can't find anything on it. I think I probably don't get anything for an extra success on that. But if you wanted to just like make it rain, go ahead and take a deep scan bonus. So that's the circle there. And let's go back around to the top. And so, start where we start. We have our trackers, everything's ready. We're going to do the delve roll. So we have a D5 for, or sorry, 5D6 for agility. No talents, no gear. Well, I have many talents. I'm just saying right now I don't. So let's do a 5D6 for agility to see what we got for the delve. And I got nothing. All right, so in the case of failing that roll, I do proceed 1 space, but I lose 2 supply for that because it basically is like, you know, if we're abstracting that, what could that be? We get turned around, we get stuck somewhere. You know what's happened to me more than I think any human in human history is I open a bag of something and it blasts all over the place. I'm constantly like, I would say, and I'm very good with math, so you know this is correct. I'd say 90% of my life has been just picking up marbles and paper clips. I'm just going to check in here that right now we don't have anything that has touched on our motivations, our sparks, the glyph of darkness. And I'd just like to check in on that because I want to remind myself, you know, how are we doing with that? Don't forget that that's what we're cultivating, that narrative arc. It's not do or die. It'll come when it comes. I also have these maneuvers here, but these are all going to be combat. And let's just keep pushing because hopefully with the location we can get something interesting here. And certainly we have a higher risk for interesting things when we fail a delving roll. Now, I'm not going to spend... still not going to spend my deep scan pool. And we move this way. This would be a good time after this to see what direction I'm going to go in. And so I could just be like, do I go this way, this way, this way? And I like this. It's like a little cut off here because I wouldn't go back. So, all right. So this is like going to probably go down from here. Okay, so our distance to exit is now 3. Our foray distance is now... You know what? Let me hold off on updating these because let's do it in the right order. So I say 2 and 2. Okay, so we now do a location check. See, but maybe I should have updated that. Foray... Because my foray distance is now 3, right? Yeah, that's how we'll play it. So my foray distance is 3, so we do 2d6 plus 3 for the roll here. And we have a 3, 5. 8 plus 3, 11. So it's still going to be a hazard. And in terms of the hazards, we go back to the Delve Hazards table. And hopefully if I can roll in a more interesting way this time, I won't get the simplest thing on the board. Maybe some narrative will open up for me. 5. So this would be the archaeologist. And a 6. Otherworldly visions. Cool. All right, this looks like a good time for some spark inputs, which I really should have printed those out. Those are a good thing to print out. Oh, this is right. This is like a different way to see glyphs. And it's Raal, R-A-A-L, is the glyph of darkness, which is shadow, obscurity, and eclipse. Okay. Oh, this actually looks cool. If I'm having this vision, I know this is not what this is for, but I think I'm going to roll a d66 to see a shape, because I love a good geometric vision to start. So we have 14, a conic structure. So there's some sort of, it could be a cone. I know there's probably pyramid on here too, but I'll include that. Under that, let's just find out first some more information about what we're seeing in front of us here. So maybe I feel like some sort of synesthetic, I feel like a white nausea. I feel nauseous, but also it seems like the nausea is the color of mother of pearl, and I think, what the hell? What am I talking about? Why? But we need to start building the eeriness here, and so let's take a look at a facet of this. Right, 11. Abandon. All right. Abandon. Okay, let's do another one. Abandon. 16. Crew. Okay. Abandon. Oh, this is so good. Okay, so I have this vision, right? And all of a sudden, I feel this white nausea filling me up, and I hear them, and I'm passed out, and they're going, "Let's just leave him here." And then one of them says, "You know what? Maybe we should just put a bullet right through him." And then another one says, "Why? He'll die either way. Why not make him suffer?" And I'm hearing these people who were my friends saying this, and I'm going, "No, this can't be true. I was passed out, right?" And so I don't know if this is what actually happened, or maybe this is my insecurity, or maybe it's some other entity trying to mess with my confidence. But either way, I put my hand on a wall and I say, no. I have to roll insight. Give me my dice. Let's see. Ooh, I like this too. Artifact generation. Let me get another one here for this pyramid or conic structure. 65. Okay, a pyramid of salt. Or a cone of salt. A cone of salt. Salt in the wound. Betrayal. The betrayal was bad enough. You wanted me to have pain? I opened the world to all of you, you ungrateful bastards. You left me to die. And then I say, no, that's not what happened. They would not have done that. They did it because they were scared. They were scared. And I hear them laughing again. It's getting harder and harder to ignore. They're laughing. Oh right, yeah. So this is the Black Ziggurat, which is the onboard mission for this book, and it has some of its own delve hazards as well. That's determined by distance to exit. That's where I was getting that idea from. I was like, I could have sworn there was one that was just distance to exit. I always do this. I put all these bookmarks here, and I forget why I did it. I have delve hazards located. So we had archaeologist, otherworldly vision, insight. If I don't get this, I'm going to be shaken. That's not good because when you have a condition associated with one of the attributes, you roll with, I think, a -2. But we're not going to fail. Insight is our specialty. Now, wait a minute. Maybe something can help me here. Shuttle pilot, cultural savant, librarian, agitator, pugilist, bird handler, actor. I do have the Book of Glyphs. That did do something. Maybe this conic structure is a glyph. You guys, I'm going to finish this piece right here. But I got to tell you, I keep, like my eyes keep closing. I keep leaning forward. So I'm going to try my best here, but I'm fading. I have been recording for about 4.5 hours now. But who's counting? Nah, not quite. That's going to be bonus to logic rolls about glyphs of the Lost Horizon. Well, is this a logic roll that I'm doing here? Nah, it's insight. We're just going to roll. Whew. I think, all right, just because I think this is the last thing I'm doing here. I would like to push. So let's see what the protocol for that is. Now, I don't think this is a deep scan bonus because that's applying to usually the travel piece of things, and this is an actual hazard. I think this is just a push, but let me just make sure. So it says no pushing passive rolls. It says certain rolls in the game, such as armor rating rolls or effects during a delve when the explorer is exposed to horrifying events, cannot be pushed. A roll can only be pushed when the explorer actively performs an action. I guess that's true. Like I'm just having a vision. Okay, so what would happen here then is I would become shaken, and this would mean, and by the way, a stretch is 15 minutes. I've been thinking about that. When we get the condition associated with our attribute. Well, ain't that just the way it is? I just got a paper cut. I got into this hobby so that I wouldn't be injured. Tarek, aren't you able to do anything? You're like a bird grimace. Yep. Basically, when I'm shaken, it means I have -2 on all insight rolls until I am able to rest for... You automatically heal one condition by resting one shift. So that's... I would have to make camp for that. So... All right. I think I gave it my best shot. I'll do some closing thoughts here. I have spent a lot of time with this game over the last 4 days. I set up a game and played it 3 times on camera. I also played it once off camera to prepare. And I would say that it does answer one of my core concerns, which is what I call the bubblegum porterhouse paradox. Sometimes people will say, well, this thing is better than this thing because this thing is easy and it feels good. And just because it you think that there's such a thing as like high art or some participation in a platonic form. Uh, that's just your opinion. Things that feel good, taste good, are easy, are hyper palatable, easy to chew and swallow. Um, that's much better. And what you prefer is these things that are difficult to unlock and inaccessible to others. Okay, and I'm saying all this because I had a feeling that this game would be enjoyable to play. All right, and my concern around it was never that. In fact, if there's one thing that I was fairly certain of about this is that it would have a nice, fun, sort of swinging lasso of a good time of a gameplay loop. It's tight. It brings it down to a smaller focus, which I think is good. I like that I'm just delving, and even if I was playing with a group, we would still just be depending on each other and listening to the drip drip and having time to share stories and build character. And at the end of the day, that stuff is better. That stuff is the real story. I mean, intrigue and factionalism and sprawling narratives, those are good only insofar as they help to propagate human relationships. And there is a part of me that does need to recognize a fundamental truth about Coriolis, the first game, that even though it stands out in my mind as this hallmark of complexity and layered meaning and risk-taking and storytelling and subversion of dominant paradigms and all this stuff, the reality is that the game was tough to play. It was tough to GM. It was tough to play. It was tough to read it. It was very, very dense. It had a lot of fascinating ideas. And just in terms of world building and artistry, it's amazing. I think it's one of the best role-playing games that I've ever read. As far as the game, I have never played... I've played in 3 campaigns of Coriolis, and not solo, in a group, and they've all collapsed because of people feeling like overwhelmed by it. And so I need to be real about that because Coriolis, I shouldn't say porterhouse. I don't think that's very good quality. Coriolis was steak, right? And my opinion is, when people say stuff like that, like, oh, it's easier, it's more fun, you can get going with it faster, it's just so it's better. I think of this little analogy of the steak and the bubblegum, which is like, yes, it is easier to put a stick of bubblegum in your mouth. And in fact, pound for pound, mouth enjoyment, if we're just measuring 5 seconds of time, bubblegum will beat many different bites of steak, especially if they have gristle, especially, you got to cut it, you get a tough piece, maybe some tendon in there and stuff like that. But on the whole, nothing ever happens with the bubblegum. The bubblegum never pairs with anything. It's not marbled. It doesn't age. You don't feel like you have participated in a meal that is sometimes powerful. And it's very clear that, for instance, steak is something that is meant to be appreciated. It is meant to be contended with. I think of a lot of things that are a little bit difficult, that are flavors that as a kid you wouldn't want: wasabi or vinegar. You wouldn't want a lot of different, perhaps, I mean, it depends on your cultural upbringing, but things that are really spicy, things that are really fermented, things that are really dry, whatever. But as you get older, you realize the nuance and complexity there. It's more of an experience. I think I've made my case, but I never had a doubt that this was going to be good. I was just, or enjoyable. I just wanted to know if it's good or if it's bubblegum. Bubblegum is fun. But if it's just bubblegum, there's nothing else is going to happen here. Every time I sit down and play, it's going to just be bubblicious. And what I could say is I do not believe that this is bubblegum. I think there's something here. Do I feel like it has the gravity, the tilt of the original game? No. But I think more people will play it. And so what we're saying, like net effect, net change, net influence, it could be more. And especially if they build this out, not only does it have good opportunities for relationship building, it has a fair amount of good world building. And even though I think some of the themes and notions brought up reflect cultural trends that make me anxious, that I think that is, I think that's me, and I think that there is more to this than just some sort of like trying to capture zeitgeist. I think there is some of that. I think, appealing. There's a business aspect here, appealing to a wider audience, making something more palatable. But I do think that there is something real here. Do I think it's great? Probably not great. It's good enough. Certainly better than some of the games out there. And so it all depends on what direction they go with it, how they cultivate it, how they build it out. So yeah, I would say gameplay loop, I give it a B plus. Setting and story and stuff like that, I give it a B. Whereas Third Horizon, I would say like gameplay, I'd maybe give it a C plus, generous C, and then its setting, I would give it like an A plus. That's Coriolis the Great Dark. I hope that you've come away with this feeling confident that you can set up a game and play. I hope that you record that. I hope you start a YouTube channel. I hope it overtakes mine. At this point, I'm so tired. I don't care if you just took my channel and just started saying it was yours right now. I wouldn't care. But do let me know if you enjoyed this and if you'd like to see me play this some more. Obviously, I have a lot of irons in the fire, but I do come back to games sometimes. And if not on camera, I write about them sometimes and I talk about them in the Discord. If you like the cut of my jib, you like the vibe, you like the way I interact, come hang out with me in the members only Discord. We have a great time. To be perfectly honest, I think that I'm just a middling fun there. I think the members of that Discord are by several orders of magnitude cooler than I am. So it's a win-win no matter what. And I'll close by saying this because I'm still too lazy to put my rolling credits back. This represents my members and they're written all here. And this is the ones I want to thank. Did that. I was so worried. Oh, I guess it's just one. Yeah, thanks, Jim.